Chapter 786. Jun Dashao was frowning and thinking hard in the formation, wondering if there were any loopholes. But he didn't expect that there would be an intruder the moment the formation was set up. He rushed over to stop it, but he was a step too late. Bear King's conditions seemed to be very miserable. This was probably because the Xian beasts had astonishing defenses, and Jun Dashao had stopped it in time. Otherwise, this Bear King would have become the first Tian Fa Beast King to be roasted alive by the heavenly lightning. Looking in from the outside, it was filled with white fog, and one's vision was blurry. Naturally, one couldn't see anything. But inside, it was a different scene. The blue sky was clear, and there were no clouds in the sky. It was a beautiful scenery. As for the other three sides, they had been sealed off by Jun Moxie with another formation. Coupled with the strength of the Tian Fa forest, it could be said to be impregnable. As for the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops, after the internal arrangements were more or less completed, Jun Moxie gave an order. Everyone left Tian Fa forest and went to the original Shui Hun Manor to set up camp. This place would be the base that Jun Moxie would expand from. The evil monarch's world would begin here. Jun Moxie activated the power of wood crazily again, forcefully connecting the trees of this mountain range with the Tian Fa forest, turning it into his secret base. In the dead of night, the giant trees grew with a schwa 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 sound. When the sky brightened, the originally small mountain range had already turned into a primeval forest. In a single night, thousands of acres of mountain range had been devoured. There was no longer any distinction between it and the Tian Fa forest. Solitary Eagle, Feng Wanyun, Bailey Luoyun, and the rest were all leading the way here. Outside, Jun Moxie had also set up a mysterious formation to conceal it. At this point, all the arrangements were temporarily completed. The problem of his own safety was finally resolved. Jun Moxie could finally heave a sigh of relief. He didn't expect that it would be so troublesome for him to move to another place. When he returned to the Tian Fa forest, he saw Long Crane flying into a rage. As it turned out, ever since the Crane King had his own temporary imperial residence, he treated it like a treasure. Every day he would walk around it and observe it, taking it as a stroll. But on this day, he was furious to find out that there was a little beast that had the audacity to defecate outside the Crane King's temporary imperial residence. The Crane King was enraged. The original cave residence was just a nest. That was not all. He would do it once in a while. There was nothing to be embarrassed about. Everyone was the thick-skinned kind. As long as he lowered his head, there would be latrines everywhere. But now that he was living in such a beautiful palace, if such an indecent thing were to happen again, how could he endure it? Therefore, when the Crane King was enraged, all the mystical beasts trembled in fear. All of them prostrated themselves and accepted the Crane King's furious rebuke. Fine. Jun Dashao saw that he still had to handle this matter. Therefore, after Dashao discussed with the other beast kings, they implemented a new measure. Thousands of large toilets sprang up in the Tian Fa forest like mushrooms after the rain. The 8 great beast kings took turns to be on duty. Once every month, they would let their subordinates clean up the filth and then transport it to another empty valley. There was a 10,000 zhang cliff, and they would use it to fill in the cliff. Naturally, they would use the wheelbarrow that General Wan from South Sky City had given them. Therefore, the Xian beasts under him were in big trouble. In the past 10,000 years, when had the Xian beasts ever defecated in such a proper manner? Now that they suddenly did this, it almost caused the Xian beasts to rebel. But ever since the high-ranking beast kings moved into the high-class villas, they had already accepted this graceful action. In fact, they even thought that it was a heinous crime for Xian beasts to defecate anywhere they wanted. In fact, the Eagle King even volunteered to set up a law enforcement team. Nearly 3,000 high-ranking Xian beasts patrolled the Tian Fa forest day and night. The moment they found any vile act of defecating anywhere they wanted, they would be punished according to the law. Their energy would be sealed, they would be beaten up, and they would be locked up in solitary confinement. If they found traces of feces in a certain area but couldn't find out who was the culprit, then all the Xian beasts in the area would be punished together. Therefore, for a long period of time, the Tianfa forest was filled with ghostly wails and wolf howls. All the Xian beasts wanted to cry but had no tears, and they complained to the heavens. As for the natural rule of the Tianfa forest where the strong preyed on the weak, June Moxie had never thought of changing it. Only in that kind of cruel competition, under the pressure of survival, would Tianfa be able to produce strong experts. If there wasn't, then it would just be a large zoo. But after the Crane King and the Bear King discussed for a while, they still decided, even if there were battles between them, they must clean up the battlefield after the battle. Otherwise, they would be severely punished. In other words, they could eat the meat, but after eating the meat, they would have to clean up the bones. Furthermore, under June Dashao's instigation, all the Xian beast clans in the Tianfa forest would have a long and drawn-out competition. In other words, once a year, all the clans would compete against each other. No deaths were allowed, but the clan that came in last would have to clean the toilets of Tianfa for the clan that came in first for a year, who would be willing to have to deal with those smelly things for an entire year. Therefore, the enthusiasm for training in Tianfa rose once again. This kind of good atmosphere caused all the Beast Kings to be grinning from ear to ear. By the time the June family's life was back on track, more than a month had already passed. Everyone in the June family had also gradually adapted to life in their new home. Every day, Grandpa June would bring a small stool and a fishing rod to the small lake that June Moxie had opened up to fish. In his free time, he would practice martial arts. The old man's life was extremely comfortable. Even the worries of being far away from his homeland had disappeared by 80 to 90%. With his worries gone, his state of mind was naturally clear. Apart from his clear state of mind, even his cultivation had improved by a lot. Speaking of which, June Moxie had given him quite a lot of good medicine during this period of time. But the old man had too many things to worry about, whether it was the country, the family, others, or himself. Even if he had tens of thousands of divine medicines, it would not be very effective. Now that he had nothing to worry about, his state of mind was clear, and the medicine that had accumulated in his body was unleashed subtly. The old man's cultivation naturally improved a lot, and he had already climbed to the realm of Superior Supreme. The young Master June did not pay too much attention to the old man's battle prowess. Even if there was a war in the future, he would not let the old man fight. But there was another benefit to the improvement of his cultivation, and that was the increase of his lifespan. The old man had spent half his life on the battlefield, and the injuries he had sustained were no small matter. Although June Moxie had tried to treat his grandfather's injuries, he was unable to do so. Although the effects were obvious, it was still impossible for the old man to recover to his peak condition. But the old man's improvement in cultivation had also greatly increased his lifespan. This had saved the young Master June a lot of trouble. With the old man's current cultivation, living for another 100 or 200 years would not be a problem. As for June Wu-yi and his wife, they weren't living a sweet and blissful life like June Moxie had imagined. After all, this couple had a very heavy sense of responsibility. They would count on their fingers every day to calculate how many orphans had been sent to the old Shui Hun manor, and how their daily lives were like. This was especially so for Han Yen Yao. Every single one of those children was on her mind. She had adopted so many children, and in just a few short days, she was able to accurately name all of them. Furthermore, she had memorized most of the children's birthdays. Furthermore, she had specially organized and recorded them so that she could prepare them at any time. Just this kind of effort alone was enough to make one sigh in admiration. Han Yen Yao had a goal in her heart, and it could be said to be her greatest wish. If all of these children could acknowledge her in their hearts and treat her as a mother, Then she would be able to feel a little more comfortable in her heart. Moreover, when taking care of these children, Han Yen Yao often felt that her heart was very natural, happy, and peaceful. Therefore, no matter how dirty these children were when they were sent to her, she didn't feel the slightest bit of disgust. With Jun Wui accompanying them in this work, the two of them did not feel lonely, nor did they feel trivial. Instead, they did their work very well. There was also something that made Jun Dashao even more gratified. The sadness hidden in the depths of Jun Wui's eyes had finally disappeared completely. His originally straight back seemed to have become even straighter, and Han Yen Yao's cold and pretty face had also disappeared. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was glowing. It seemed like there was a saying that a woman's beauty was nourished by a man. As for the biggest palace that was occupied by Dongfang Wen Xin and the girls, there would be the sound of playing mahjong every day. That was the mahjong that Jun Dashao had invented. Ever since it was invented, the girls had a great time playing it. Whenever they were free, they would gather together to play around. Sometimes, even the Snake King would sneak in and join in. Guan Qinghan, Dugu Xiaoi, Han Yenmeng, Princess Raimu, Dongfang Wen Xin, and the Snake King. These 6 people became the most loyal mahjong friends. Among them, the best was actually Dugu Xiaoi. This girl had a very high comprehension in this aspect. Later on, she could actually play mahjong with her eyes closed, and there would definitely be no mistakes with her jade-like hands. She was known as the god of mahjong, and was even ostracized by the others in the end. You can play with your eyes closed, and you're still so lucky. Everyone wants to win in mahjong, and it's unbearable to just lose without winning. Princess Raimu's health improved greatly, and her mood became more cheerful. With the company of her best friend, Dugu Xiaoi, her complexion naturally became better day by day. And when Dongfang Wen Xin saw that these girls were all as beautiful as flowers in jade, he had already determined that these were all his son's women, which meant that they were his daughters-in-law. Of course, he would dote on them. Now that his soul had been entrusted to him, he was no longer depressed and forced to be happy like before. During this period of time, apart from being a construction worker, Jun Dashao also worked as a porter. Every day, a huge amount of medicinal herbs would be sent to Jun Moxie's door by the Beast Kings. Regardless of whether they were poisonous or not, precious or common, they would all be transported here. Jun Moxie did not reject any of them. Some of the more precious ones would be directly moved into the Hongjun Pagoda, and the rest of the ordinary ones would be transplanted in a medicinal garden that he had opened up. Although the former had obtained the first young master's 10,000 years of collection, it was a pity that those medicinal herbs were too precious, and their age and medicinal strength were too strong. They were all items that people coveted, but did not dare to use at all. If they were used at his current level, it would basically be a waste. It would be better to make use of these local products from Tian Fa. The problem was solved smoothly. The war for seizing the heavens was carried out according to the original plan, so everything was completely fine now. I stretched my back and let out a sigh of relief. Today's life is so beautiful, wahahaha. Oh, there's something that I need to make clear in advance. These few days, I've been desperately saving up chapters to be used during the new year, so that I can spend time with my family during the new year. So, it might be very difficult for me to break out in these few days. I was lying in the hospital during the New Year '09, and I'm still desperately writing and updating the legend of Ling Tian on the eve of the New Year 10. I need to spend time with my family this year. During the few days of the new year, there will still be 2 chapters a day. Brothers and sisters, please understand. Chapter 787. Jun Mo Xie had opened the door to see Earthcracker running towards him while puffing and puffing. He was carrying a huge object. In fact, he had rolled it up several times. It was several feet long. The roots of the object were floating in the air, and there were lumps the size of a human head swaying in the air. In fact, it looked like it weighed nearly 500 kilograms. June Moxie couldn't help but be shocked when he saw it. That thing was actually a giant Chinese knotweed that was tens of thousands of years old. It turned out that when Tiger King was on duty, he found that there was a vine on the mountain that looked like some kind of medicine that his brother-in-law had mentioned. So, he mobilized hundreds of ninth-level Xian beasts to dig up almost the entire mountain before they completely dug it out. Then, he couldn't wait to carry it and present it as a treasure. This was the Earthcracker who had a breakthrough. Otherwise, an ordinary person wouldn't be able to carry such a heavy object. A giant Chinese knotweed that weighed more than 1,000 pounds. Generally speaking, Chinese knotweed was different from other medicinal herbs. Most medicinal herbs, no matter how precious they were, would turn into ashes once they reached 10,000 years old, and the spiritual energy within would return to heaven and earth. Only Chinese knotweed was not subject to this restriction. No matter how old it would not return to heaven and earth. But it was precisely because of this characteristic that the Chinese knotweed that Earthcracker found was extremely rare. Even the huge pile of elixirs that the first young master had found did not have it. The first thing Jun Mo Xie did was to hurriedly store this gigantic thing into the Hongjun Pagoda as if it was a precious treasure. The Beast Kings were working so hard because of the same thought. Brother-in-law, hurry up and refine the pills. We are all waiting to improve our strength. Once we have strength, we can beat those damn bastards from the Holy Land and avenge our elder sister. Jun Moxie had 1,000 things to do. After he had finally arranged all the arrays, he immediately put the task of refining the pills on the agenda. Strength was indeed the most important. The Tian Fa forest was undoubtedly very strong, and the mystical beasts were also unusually united. The entire forest was like a piece of iron, and even saints did not dare to enter easily. However, not daring to enter easily did not mean that they absolutely did not dare to enter. There were always accidents. To give a simple example, if the 3 Holy Lands outside Tian Fa gathered a group of their strongest experts and joined forces to attack, as long as they didn't advance rashly, they would definitely be able to achieve considerable results. In addition to external threats, there were also internal problems. Jun Moxie would never forget that in the midst of the misty mansion in the Tian Fa forest, there seemed to be an extremely powerful being sealed, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. Speaking of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, Jun Moxie sometimes felt that the world would be too peaceful if this lunatic didn't exist. Moreover, the people of Misty Mansion could also enter Tian Fa. A very secure fortress did not mean that it was absolutely secure. This was something that needed to be understood. Even if he didn't know whether he was a friend or foe, Jun Moxie still decided to maintain his vigilance. If it wasn't someone that he truly acknowledged, Jun Moxie would never let his guard down. For the next 2 nights, Jun Mo Xie had overdrawn himself a dozen times. He had mass-produced a large number of vitality linkage pills, vitality congregation pills, and heavenly vitality pills. He had refined no less than 2,000 pills of each type. Right now, ever since Jun Dashao's meridians had transformed into purple spiritual energy, his efficiency in refining pills had increased by more than 2 times. Originally, when refining these 3 great pills, he would only be able to produce a few batches of pills in an entire night. Sometimes there was even a chance of failure, but now he could produce 3 to 4 batches in an hour, and the success rate had skyrocketed. Originally, he could produce more than 10 pills in a single batch, but now he could produce at least 50 pills in a single batch. Useless pills? There was no such thing as a useless pill. This allowed Jun Mo Xie to truly feel the benefits of this purple aura. Not only was its toughness 10 times greater than the original white aura, but it was also able to coordinate with the flame of primal chaos and the furnace of good fortune in a truly intimate manner. It was as if the 3 of them were originally a family. Jun Moxie faintly felt that his conjecture was very close to the truth. What June Moxie didn't know was that his conjecture was not close to the truth. In fact, it was the truth. The flame of primal chaos and the furnace of good fortune were originally created from the primordial chaos. They complemented each other and were eternal and indestructible, and the newly formed purple energy in his meridians was the parent of the flame of primal chaos and the furnace of good fortune, the primal chaos purple energy. If the primal chaos purple energy was used to activate the flame of primal chaos and the furnace of good fortune, there would still be accident. Especially when it was used to produce such low-grade trash pills. Even Lord Pangu, who split the heavens and earth apart, would have slammed his head against the wall and died. But then again, the primal chaos purple energy that June Moxie had now was still too weak. So, it still couldn't support his endless refining of pills for a long period of time. If he waited until it grew stronger, then it would be truly impressive, but even if the total amount of true qi could not keep up, young Master June was simply too dedicated. Even the most dedicated pill Tao cultivator would not be like this fellow, just grabbing a few types of pills and concocting them like a madman without rest or sleep. It was as if he had not eaten a full meal for 10 years and suddenly came across a free restaurant, swearing not to give up until the other party was poor. What made people even more envious and jealous was that this fellow had an almost inexhaustible supply of elixirs to back him up. Normally, when refining pills, they would stop after refining a few batches. There were no more ingredients, but this fellow was different. Not only did he have the entire Tian Fa forest, he even had the 9 nether first young master's inheritance and treasures. Those were all top-grade treasures. Just like that, 2 days and 2 nights passed in darkness. June Moxie's dedicated labor finally came to an end. He stretched his back and the bones in his body cracked. Only then did he remember to go out for a breath of fresh air. He had originally wanted to let Mei Shuyan cultivate beside him when he was refining pills. But Mei Shuyan had only just reached the first level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune. She was far from reaching the 4th level of the Hongjun Pagoda. June Dashao had no choice but to give up. But when June Moxie came out, he was also shocked. Although Mei Shuyan had yet to break through the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, as she continued to cultivate the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, she absorbed a huge amount of spiritual energy into her body. She had actually leapt to the ranks of a level 7 Xian beast. This made June Dashao feel a little unbalanced. Isn't this a little too fast? What kind of person is this? Oh no, what kind of beast is this? This is too much of a beast. I don't think this young master has such a fast progress. It's only been a few days. June Dashao had obviously neglected a very important point. Although he was also constantly cultivating to increase his cultivation, when he was in the outside world, the spiritual energy was extremely sparse. And the time he spent in the outside world was obviously much more than the time he spent in the Hongjun Pagoda. But Mei Shuyan was determined not to relax. She directly cultivated in the Hongjun Pagoda. Whether it was eating, drinking, or sleeping, they were all enveloped by the spiritual energy of the Hongjun Pagoda. It would be strange if this speed was not fast. Although Mei Shuyan had the speed of a beast, June Dashao was worse than a beast. Seeing that June Moxie had come over to her side, Mei Shuyan was naturally very happy. Obviously, she was quite satisfied with the results of her cultivation during this period of time, although June Moxie was still very close to her, and her heart was still somewhat unable to accept it. This time, Mei Shuyan did not purposely avoid June Moxie, and allowed herself to be hugged in his arms. Because this embrace, it was only after losing it for a while that she truly understood how much she longed for this warm embrace. Only in this embrace would Mei Shuyan feel that no matter what, she would always have someone to rely on. He had walked the path of the strong alone for many years. Although he seemed majestic and stood at the peak, he had never felt a sense of belonging. It was always lonely at the top. However, although he was lonely, although he was cold, he had persevered and walked all the way. At first, she didn't think much of it. It seemed that life was just like this. From the moment she was born, she had started to work hard to become strong. Until the end, she threw her life on the battlefield of the war for seizing the heavens, as if that was her final destination and her destined fate. Mei Shuyan didn't think much of it. She had long been used to accepting her own fate. Although she didn't feel what happiness was. She had never tasted what happiness was, but, ever since this embrace appeared, she knew, truly knew. She knew that the meaning of her life was not only Tian Fa, not only the war for seizing the heavens. So in this world, there was something even more beautiful, something that could make her put down the war for seizing the heavens, and even sacrifice everything, something that she would protect and cherish even if she had to burn everything in an instant. So, this was the most precious thing in life. Only with him could her life truly become complete. In the war for seizing the heavens, she could still sacrifice herself, but she would have worries. The war for seizing the heavens, the lives of the world, was once an ideal or perhaps a goal. But that was not life, nor was it the whole meaning of existence. When there were no such things, when there were no more worries, she only wanted to have a partner that she could rely on for the rest of her life. Watching the sunrise in the morning, facing the night breeze at night, admiring the flowers in spring, facing the thunder in summer, watching the setting moon in autumn, and sharing the ice and snow in winter, or hiding in a house made of snow and ice, sleeping together. Because of each other, even the ice and snow would become gentle and warm in the instant that she was once again embraced by June Moxie. Mei Shuyan could clearly feel herself trembling. Her soul was trembling in happiness. Mei Shuyan could clearly feel the attachment this embrace had towards her, so she didn't care anymore, no matter what worries her. No matter what I become, I will always be his most beautiful Shuyan, the most beautiful woman, the one he loves the most. Whether it's in my human form or in my original form. Since that's the case, then what do I still care about? June Moxie was overjoyed. Being in the Hongjun Pagoda, he could clearly feel that Mei Shuyan had let go of everything after a great enlightenment. This lass's mental state had a huge breakthrough, and she had actually successfully unlocked her own heart by herself. This really made him overjoyed. Chapter 788. After a long while, June Moxie finally said contentedly, "Shuyan ah. Do you know, ever since you were injured, even though I looked fine on the surface, my heart has never calmed down. I've been worried all along the way, I've been thinking about you, but today's hug has truly made me feel at ease. You little vixen who makes me worry about you, it's really torturous." Mei Shuyan blinked her big, intelligent eyes and looked at June Moxie's face. She continued to shrink her body and snuggle into his embrace. She quietly put her small ears on his chest to catch the familiar sound of his heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. Every sound made her feel incomparably blissful. "I can't take it any more, you little vixens still want to tempt me at this time. I've decided, even if you recover in the future, you must return to your current appearance and let me hug you every once in a while. I like this feeling too much, I'm too happy." June Dashao sighed in satisfaction. "You still want to do this after you've recovered? How can I face others then? However, it's not a bad thing to fulfill your wish. I just hope that you won't regret it when the time comes." Mei Shuyan, who was in his embrace, lightly snorted and playfully blinked her eyes, as if deep in thought. June Dashao himself didn't know that because of this sentence today, it would bring him great trouble in the future. After the two of them got married, for a period of time, whenever June Moxie wanted to be intimate with her, he would always find that, at the most crucial moment when he was about to charge into the battlefield, the alluring beauty in his arms would suddenly turn into a little ere one could imagine. Every time that happened, June Dashao would want to cry, but no tears would come out. Well, that's a story for another time. Just as June Moxie was talking nonsense, suddenly, Mei Shuyan, who was in his arms, became completely silent. June Moxie was greatly surprised. He looked down and saw that Mei Shuiyan's eyes were bright, staring at a point in the air, and her breath was long. At this moment, she actually fell into a transcendent state similar to enlightenment. Jun Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had no choice but to hug the soft little thing in his arms and act like a statue for a while. After an unknown period of time, Mei Shuiyan suddenly jumped onto the heaven and earth spirit vein that she used to rest and cultivate. Her tiny claws were as swift as the wind, and she waved them around. Dragons and phoenixes danced, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He had actually written 3 lines of words. However, Jun Moxie could clearly feel that this was not a word. At least, it wasn't just words. It was 3 kinds of profound moves, because the murderous aura on it was extremely strong. Ask, when will the struggle for power stop? Hate, the holy lands are heartless. 1 wish, the world is peaceful. Ask, when will the storm and war stop? Hate, the heavens have tears. 2 wish, the earth is cleansed, the world is clean. Ask, when will the end of time come? Hate, the world is long. 3 wish, the heavens, this feeling will accompany the cycle of reincarnation. Jun Moxie carefully looked at these 3 sentences, and suddenly seemed to understand something. The first line should be referring to the people from the 3 Holy Lands. Mei Shuiyan had already seen through them and expressed a desire to reorganize the world. And it should be a move that covered a wide area. Every stroke represented the position of the next move. Moreover, it could change back and forth from beginning to end, and its power was extremely impressive. The second line was talking about the war for seizing the heavens. So, this was a wish and also a determination to cleanse the world and return it to a peaceful world. At the same time, this was also a move. As for the third line, it was actually love, and the target seemed to be himself. And the emotions were strong, every stroke was full and smooth, revealing a kind of determination that would not change in future generations. Make a wish to the heavens, this feeling will accompany the cycle of reincarnation, using the cycle of reincarnation to express her sincere feelings. The so-called cycle of reincarnation also represented a killer move with the greatest power, an ultimate move that no one in the world would be able to avoid. This lass was indeed an overlord of a generation, to suddenly comprehend at this moment. On top of that, he had created 3 peerless techniques with boundless power, and the one that attracted Jun Dashao's eyes the most, love accompanies reincarnation, was actually the most powerful of the 3 moves. This meant that in her heart, Jun Moxie was the most important. Whether it was the 3 Holy Lands or the war for seizing the heavens, they were all important, but it also depended on who they were compared to. Pride. Amazing. Really amazing. How sharp was Jun Moxie's eyes. Naturally, he could see the power of these 3 moves with a single look. But the complexity of it was also unimaginable. Looks like all these years, the responsibility of the 3 Holy Lands and the war for seizing the heavens had pressured Mei Shuiyan to such an extent. Otherwise, she would never have been able to create such an earth-shattering move. Jun Moxie could also see that these 3 moves were still in their early stages. No one would have thought that in this place, with only the 2 of them as witnesses, after Mei Shuiyan broke through the shackles of her soul, she had a flash of inspiration and created the 3 ultimate techniques that would later dominate the world. 3 questions to the heavens. Jun Moxie did not disturb her, but quietly left the Hongjun Pagoda, because after writing these 3 lines of words, Mei Shuiyan once again fell into a strange state of detachment. Her eyes stared at these 3 lines of words, and she entered a long period of contemplation. She was perfecting these 3 moves. The moves that she created were the most suitable for her. This was the first time in many years that Mei Shuiyan had created her own move. At such a time, she must not be disturbed. Once she was disturbed, all her previous efforts would be wasted. Jun Moxie was very clear about this. So, he chose to disappear silently. because his existence, even if it was just a glimpse of a shadow, was enough to affect the success or failure of Mei Xueyan's move. How could it be easy to create a move? The continent's Xian techniques had been passed down since the 9 Nether First Young Masters' time. It had been at least 10,000 years. More than 10,000 years. How many moves had been tempered over and over again? Whether it was imitating beasts or birds, whether it was imitating mountains or waterfalls, or the boundless sea of clouds, wind, snow, and moon, every move had to go through countless modifications. Everything that could be used had basically been used to its fullest extent. The space left for the later generations to think was also relatively less and less. Therefore, those who were able to create their own moves on this basis were all grandmasters of their generation. Shockingly talented people. And Mei Xueyan's cultivation was completely destroyed, and she had to start all over again. Moreover, she practiced a special martial art that was completely different from her past. It was equivalent to abandoning her past for many years. But at this time, she was able to let go of all the shackles in her heart. With emotions as the foundation, she created a move that completely belonged to her. And from this moment onwards, although Mei Xueyan's cultivation was only at the 7th level of a Xian beast, she truly possessed the qualifications that were not inferior to the ancestors of the 3 Holy Lands. Self-created martial art. At this moment, Mei Xueyan did not even care about her image, and fell into deep thought. As for Jun Moxie, he did not have any other thoughts. He was not jealous, nor did he compare. The only thing he had was a heart full of pride. Because the person who has such achievements is my woman, is my wife. Mei Xueyan's enlightenment took a full 3 days. And in these 3 days, Jun Moxie did not even dare to disturb her when she was delivering food and water. When he was refining the pills, he directly entered the 4th level of the Hongjun Pagoda, and then directly teleported out from the 4th level. Outside, the Tian Fa forest was in a state of jubilation, because Jun Moxie had already released the news that all the 9th level Xian beasts, who did not eat the pills last time, would all have a share this time. As soon as this earth-shattering news spread out, the Beast Kings rushed over as fast as they could, as if they were chasing the wind and lightning. Along the way, they roared and called out to their own 9th level Xian beasts, "Hurry up! There's great news! There's that good pill from last time. With that pill, I can speed up my progress and shorten my cultivation time. I'm 1 step closer to my new home. I need to hurry up and get it." In an instant, everyone, whether flying in the sky or running on the ground, rushed over hurriedly. There was a continuous sound of big blockheads crashing into the trees, then getting up from the ground and sprinting away in a daze, looking at the huge black mass in front of them, then looking at the sky that was covering the sun and the sky that was descending. There were still more flying in the distance, and the sound of thousands of soldiers and horses running in the forest. All of their eyes were red, and all of them were full of desire. Jun Dashao suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. How many are there? An army of 1,000,000? Didn't Shui Yen say previously that there were less than 20,000 9th level Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest? Why did so many suddenly appear now? Not to mention that there were still those who were far away and had not received the news. Who knew how many were there? The ones here were only the ones who were close by, a very small portion. But from the looks of it, this extremely small portion was at least more than 200,000. Shuiyan, Shuiyan, your casual words have caused me to suffer. This is the 20,000 that you were talking about? How many 20,000 would that be? What Jun Moxie did not know was that when he announced the news just now, he had left out a word. Peak. This word was too important. It was definitely the difference between heaven and hell. Mei Xueyan had said that there were more than 20,000 peak 9th level Xian beasts. But this time, Jun Dashao was muddle-headed and said 9th level Xian beasts. The difference between the two was definitely huge. Although 20,000 peak 9th level Xian beasts was not a small number, but in the huge Tian Fa forest, this ratio was definitely not a lot. In fact, it was even 1 in 10 million. But 9th-level Xian beasts were hundreds of times more than this number. Jun Moxie finally understood why Mei Shuiyan had once said that if Tian Fa wanted to annihilate the 3 Holy Lands, or even the entire continent, it would not be too difficult. He also finally understood why even the Saint King and the Holy Emperor did not dare to enter Tian Fa directly. Yesterday was Brother Fei Xiang's birthday. I'm sorry to know it's so late, but I'm still here to give my late blessings to my brother. Brother Fei Xiang, I wish you a happy birthday. I hope that every birthday from now on will bring you greater achievements than the year before. Chapter 789. The Tian Fa forest covered an area of hundreds of millions of acres. From east to west, it spanned across the entire continent, occupying almost half of the space. How large was this area? There were not many peak-level Xian Beast Kings, and only a small number of peak-level 9 Xian Beasts. But there were definitely more than 1 million ordinary level 9 Xian Beasts. Or even more. This kind of power coupled with an even greater number of level 8, 7, and 6 wait. Jun Moxie only felt dizzy. How could a mere few thousand people from the 3 Holy Lands compare to such a huge force? No wonder the 3 Holy Lands were always so afraid of Tian Fa. But these Xian beasts were really simple. With such a terrifying force, even if they wanted to dominate the entire continent, it would be too much. But in the past 10,000 years, it had never happened before. In fact, there was not even one with such ambition. This was truly strange, miracle. A real miracle. Jun Moxie's confidence suddenly soared to the extreme. With such a powerful force in my hands, who the F***ck do I need to be afraid of? The 3 Holy Lands? What the F***ck, however, whether he was overflowing with confidence or indescribable shock, he still had to clean up this mess in front of him. If he really gave each level 9 Xian beast a portion of pills, then Jun Dashao would not have to do anything else for the rest of his life. He could just focus on refining pills. This amount was really too terrifying. Looking at the 8 Xian Beast Kings standing at the front, Jun Dashao's eyes suddenly turned and a plan came to his mind. At the front, Bear Mountain and Earthcracker, who were ready to take advantage of the situation, suddenly felt their scalps go numb. Are we going to be unlucky again? Sure enough, Jun Dashao frowned suspiciously and slammed the table. Bear Mountain, Earthcracker, what the hell are the two of you doing? Didn't I tell you again and again that the lowest level 9 Xian Beast is a peak level 9 Xian Beast? Why did everyone come here? Is this how you convey your opinions? You really can't do anything right, but you're good at spoiling things. Bear Mountain's excited smile froze on his face, and his eyes widened. What? Jun Moxie squinted his eyes and continued to roar confidently. Look at you, if not for your big sister saying that you're a fool, I wouldn't have believed her. You're really pissing me off. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have asked you two to pass the message. You've ruined everything. Bear Mountain said, huh? And immediately shut his mouth. Brother-in-law had already mentioned big sister, so it was better for him to shut his mouth. Otherwise, he would only need to give me pillow talk. At most, I'll just have a fever. If I grumble, I might not be able to explain myself clearly. After that, I'll definitely be in pain all over. I'll endure it. Earthcracker blinked his eyes in confusion. Then, he said in a confused manner, Brother-in-law, this seems like Bear Mountain, who was beside him, poked him and whispered, If you don't want your whole body to hurt, shut up. These two idiots were old pawns. Earthcracker didn't understand what was going on. But, he immediately shut his mouth. Brothers, we have the pills now. There's a lot of them. Jun Moxie ignored the two of them. He faced the crowd and roared. Suddenly, a wave of cheers resounded like a tsunami. It's just that I've refined a lot of pills this time. but it's still lacking compared to the number of our brothers. Everyone is aware of the situation in our Tian Fa forest. I had only intended to inform the level 9 peak Xian beasts to come here. After all, they're the only ones who are at the bottleneck of advancing. But I didn't expect that Tiger King and Bear King would send the wrong message. And that's why everyone has come here. This is my fault. It's my mistake. How could I have trusted those two? He sighed in disappointment. He wasn't sighing because of Jun Dashao's poor judgment of people. Instead, he was sighing because he didn't have enough pills. It didn't seem like a big deal that he had come here for nothing. But his new residence seemed far away in the indefinite future. Tiger King and Bear King looked at each other in dismay. Brother-in-law, you're my brother-in-law. You can't be so sarcastic. It seems like, when did you ask us to send the message? Not to mention the **T difference between level 9 and level 9 peak Xian beasts. Why don't the two of us know about this? Shouldn't we at least have some conscience? But we're not humans in our bones. But, brother-in-law, you're a real human. How can you make something out of nothing? How can you talk nonsense like that? Won't the two of us become street rats in Tian Fa if you do this? However, everything has its pros and cons. It's precisely because of the misunderstanding between the two great kings that I've come here to pass on a message to everyone. This will save everyone from having to travel a long distance again. Jun Moxie swept his gaze across the crowd and said loudly, "Everyone should know that the effects of pills are very overbearing. Even the pills that I've refined have a certain degree of danger. If you don't reach the level of level 9 peak Xian beasts, forcefully consuming it will not have any effect on your cultivation. There's even a high chance that your body will explode and you'll die. But, if you consume it after you've reached the level of level 9 peak Xian beasts, not only will there be no side effects, there will also be no pain during the process of leveling up. This is the fundamental difference in levels. Everyone here is an intelligent person. I'm sure you all understand. So, I promise everyone here that no matter if you're a level 7, level 8, or level 9 peak Xian beasts, everyone must continue to cultivate hard. As long as you've reached the level of level 9 peak Xian beasts, you must immediately report to your king and come to me to collect the pills. Breaking through to the shape-shifting realm will cause your strength to increase by leaps and bounds. Becoming a true expert. Those who have reached the level of level 9 peak Xian beasts can come to me to listen to the pills. As for those who have broken through to level 11 peak Xian beasts and above, they can even obtain a private house that I've built for them." Jun Moxie said solemnly, "This promise from today onwards will not change for the next 10 years. A wave of cheers instantly soared into the sky like a tsunami. It wasn't difficult for these level 9 Xian beasts to reach the level of level 9 peak Xian beasts. Some of them had strong inherited characteristics and didn't even need to cultivate. They could just eat and wait for their death. Once their bodies were fully grown, they would immediately reach the peak of their cultivation. However, breaking through to the shape-shifting realm was a matter of life and death. Now that they heard this news, how could they not be wild with joy? Level 9 Xian beasts and shape-shifting Xian beasts. That was a fundamental difference. The difference was a rather large divide. Just in terms of lifespan, there was a difference of a few hundred years. Also, as long as they reached the supremacy realm and above, they would be able to obtain that beautiful house. They had to achieve it even if they had to risk their lives. Now that they had a goal, they had to train with all their might. I say that, brother-in-law, if within 10 years, you can't reach the pinnacle, what should we do? This was a big black bear covered in black fur. He stammered as he asked. It was obvious that he had just reached the level of level 9 and had only just learned how to speak. Moreover, as he spoke, his black eyes shrunk as he looked at Bear King. There was fear in his eyes, as well as panic and shyness, and his voice seemed to be very soft. It sounded a little like a woman's voice, A female bear? June Moxie was a little taken aback. This was the only female high-level Xian beast he had seen apart from Mei Shuyan and the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. Thinking of this, June Moxie looked around and realized that almost half of the level 9 Xian beasts here were female. Then, where had they been before this? What June Moxie did not know was that in the Tian Fa forest, especially among the high-level Xian beasts, the ratio of female Xian beasts was too low. So, if there was a large-scale battle, the female Xian beasts would not participate no matter what. This was also the tradition of Tian Fa for tens of thousands of years. As for Mei Shuyan and the Qian Sun, they were different and could not be mentioned in the same breath. If I can't achieve it within 10 years, then it's hard to say. I can't promise this. There are too many Xian beasts in our Tian Fa. If I promise 100 years, then I won't have to do anything else for the rest of my life. I'll just focus on concocting pills and repairing houses. June Moxie narrowed his eyes and rubbed his chin as he chuckled. He did not really want 10 years, but he wanted to set a deadline for these fellows. If the time was too short, none of them would be able to achieve it. But if the time was too long, none of them would have the drive to improve, so the deadline of 10 years was deliberately suggested by June Moxie. It was not that he was afraid of frequent concocting pills and repairing houses. After all, it was so easy to become a venerable and above. Oh, then I will work hard. I will go and work hard now. That black bear's fur was soft and smooth, and there were rings of golden fur all over its body. Although it looked bloated, it still looked rather cute. Moreover, his personality was also a little shy. He seemed to be the extremely bashful type. Bear King's eyes that were still wide open earlier suddenly softened. He coughed heavily and said slowly, Are you from the Black Gold Bear family? I am. Lord Bear King. The black bear was startled and stammered. And a female bear that is close to adulthood? Bear Mountain's eyes narrowed. He even stuck out his tongue and licked his upper lip. He circled around the black gold bear, and suddenly, his expression became more and more ambiguous. Yes, Lord Bear King, you. This pitiful female black gold bear looked at the supreme king of the bear family. Her eyes were filled with innocence and fear, and her words became more and more incoherent. What's your name? Bear King's voice became even more strange. It actually became very gentle, and used a voice that was as tender as water to ask. However, Big Bear's voice had always been rough. So, it had suddenly become gentle. And it had given the other Xian beast kings goosebumps. June Moxie's hair had stood on end when he had heard it. The few Xian beasts that had already taken human form at the front were all winking at each other, not knowing what they were thinking. I am Bear. Xiao Wu. The black gold bear Xiao Wu became more and more nervous, and stuttered more and more. She had no idea what this Bear King wanted to do. Her pair of huge bear paws seemed to be at a loss of what to do, and she simply didn't know where to put them. Xiao Wu. Such a huge creature actually had such an elegant name. She was really too talented, but she didn't live up to her name, right? However, Bear Mountain seemed to be very satisfied. He self-righteously put on a pleasant expression and said somewhat overbearingly, Xiao Wu. Oh, what a good name. Small and exquisite, cute and adorable. Marry me. Be my wife and give birth to little bears for me. Tomorrow is our little sister Yiling's birthday. I wish her a happy birthday in advance. I hope that Yiling will be even happier and more beautiful in our evil monarch's big family. I hope that all the brothers and sisters can say happy birthday little sister Yiling. In the book review section. Let us bless our little sister. Chapter 790. Boom. The Xian beasts were in an uproar. June Moxie was so shocked that his mouth was crooked and his eyes slanted. He directly sat down and looked at Big Bear. This guy is too direct. What kind of adjectives are these? Where did he learn them from? This bear weighed at least 700 kilograms, but in Big Bear's eyes, it was small and dainty, cute and delightful, and this was only their first meeting, and this guy was already proposing. And it was so overbearing. Marry me, be my wife, give birth to bears for me. What kind of proposal was that? If it were a human, they would go up to the girl they liked and say, "Marry me, be my wife, give birth to sons for me." Wouldn't they be beaten half to death? Then they would call her a lunatic and leave in disdain? But Long Crane and the rest just stood there. They did not seem to be surprised at all, much less interfere. "How about it? Are you willing or not?" Bear Mountain stared at her and asked nervously. I don't know." Little Dance looked around pitifully, as if asking for help. She took a few steps back, her heavy body almost falling to the ground. "You don't know? You won't reject me if you don't know? Doesn't reject me mean you agree? If you agree, then it means you agree to be my wife. Come, my wife, let's go home and buy some time to make a little bear." Big Bear grinned and reached out his chubby bear paw, wanting to step forward and hold her hand. Little Dance was on the verge of tears when she saw this. She couldn't help but look at the older Niello bear not far away. Bear Mountain naturally noticed it as well. He pointed. "You. Come out. You're the leader of the Niello bears, right?" The old bear walked over with a big smile. "Lord Bear King, yes, I am the leader of the Niello bears, Big Treasure. I am also Little Woo's father." "Oh, so you're my father-in-law." Bear Mountain waved his hand. "I'm sure you have no objections to our relationship? You should feel honored, right?" Father-in-law." The word father-in-law was something that Bear Mountain had learned from June Moxie recently. Yes, his wife's father was his father-in-law. Now that he had met Little Dance's father, he naturally wanted to show off his knowledge. Just now, he had said things like petite and cute to please Little Dance, but now that he had said father-in-law, he wanted to show that he was knowledgeable and different from everyone else. Yes, I have no objections. I have no objections, it's very honorable. It is indeed very honorable, too honorable." The Black Gold Bear tribe leader Xiong de Bao nodded and bowed. However, he did not understand what the word father-in-law meant, but he guessed that it was a form of respect. He said humbly, "I do not deserve to be called father-in-law by Lord Bear King." You are my father-in-law. You are my father-in-law." June Moxie almost vomited a mouthful of blood and died, sitting on the ground. He was already shocked to the point where his limbs were twitching and his body was convulsing after hearing those words. What the hell was going on? That won't do. I can't be your father-in-law. You old thing, you actually want to take advantage of me." Bear Mountain was about to explode in anger, but he controlled himself and said amiably, "Forget it, who asked you to be my father-in-law? Hurry up and go back to prepare the dowry. When I marry your daughter, you should at least make some preparations, right? Don't let your daughter marry too shabbily. She will be the queen of our bear tribe in the future. She will be the mother of the world, the ruler of all bears. And the pine fruit wine and honey biscuits from your side, it should be no problem to send 10,000 caddies of each over, right?" Bear Mountain said casually. Yes, I will definitely do that," Xiong de Bao agreed. Thus, under June Moxie's dumbfounded gaze, this marriage was settled just like that. June Moxie's jaw dropped. "That works too? Mother of the world, the ruler of all bears. Oh my God! There was actually such a marriage proposal. This was only the first time they met, and he had already forcefully asked for a wife, and even chased after his father-in-law to ask for a dowry. Not only did he ask for a dowry, he even asked for a lion's share. And he was not polite at all, directly calling his father-in-law an old thing. Who would call their father-in-law like that? The most surprising thing was, there was no obstruction at all, and it was settled just like that. A wife and a large dowry, everything. It seemed like this son-in-law of his was a bandit trying to kidnap the bride. No. Even if he was a bandit kidnapping the bride, he should at least have some sweet words and honeyed phrases, or at least some promises. This fellow was worse than a bandit. What was this called? This world was too crazy. No, it should be said that the Chien Beast's world was too crazy. What the hell was this? Congratulations, Bear King, congratulations, Bear King. All the Chien Beasts congratulated him in unison, as if they were used to this kind of scene, and did not feel that there was anything wrong. Bear Mountain Shawn grinned proudly, holding Little Dance's hand and walking back and forth in front of the crowd. He cupped his fists and returned the greeting. Thank you, brothers. From now on, this old bear is also a man with a wife. Little Dance followed behind him shyly, her head lowered shyly, her short tail swaying back and forth. There was not the slightest bit of grievance in her expression, as if she had been forced to marry someone else. Instead, there was a hint of joy on her face. Tiger King Earthcracker squinted his eyes and let out a strange cry of praise. At the same time, he swept his eyes across his own tribe. After a long while, he moved closer to June Emosia and sighed. Ai, brother-in-law, look. That old bear fellow is really lucky. That bride is really beautiful. Ah, what a pity. Why isn't such a beauty from my tiger tribe? In his words, there was actually a hint of covetous desire in his voice. June Emosia was genuinely startled. He squinted his eyes and looked at Earthcracker in disbelief. Fortune? Really beautiful? Such a beauty? Earthcracker, are you having a fever? What are you talking about? Brother-in-law, you're really. Look at that bear girl's black fur, how shiny, how alluring her golden fur is, and how healthy her figure is, and look at her face, how flat her nose is. Tsk, those eyes are real bear eyes, and that mouth is really wide. Ah. Tsk, and those ears on her head, so tall and erect, and that big butt, it's really the best of the best. It wouldn't be a problem for her to give birth to a few babies. The only flaw is that her tail is a little too short. But it's still not bad, mainly because of that huge butt. I've long heard that the Black Gold Bear tribe has produced the #1 beauty of Tian Fa, and from the looks of it, it's indeed a well-deserved reputation. How does that saying go, right? Seeing is not as good as hearing. It really makes one's heart itch. How did fourth brother bear get to see her first? It's really a fool's luck. Tiger King Earthcracker said as he drooled. From the looks of it, if not for Bear Mountain snatching her first, he would have challenged him to a duel. June Moxie was stunned for a long time before his mouth twitched. Earthcracker, are you sure you're speaking from your heart? The #1 beauty of Tian Fa? She's the #1 beauty of Tian Fa? Brother-in-law, what are you saying? Is it surprising that she's the #1 beauty of Tian Fa? Could it be that only someone like my big sister is considered a beauty? She doesn't have a figure, and she doesn't have a butt. How can she give birth to a baby? When your son is born, you'll know how difficult it is. Earthcracker looked at June Dashao as if he was looking at a retard and said earnestly, Brother-in-law, cough cough, although everyone is very impressed with Big Sister, and her abilities are really outstanding, everyone respects her from the bottom of their hearts, but that face of hers is really a little too. Although that last Snake King's figure is also not good, her original form is that of a snake, and no matter how much she transforms, she'll still look like a bag of bones. But with Big Sister's high cultivation, why doesn't she make herself more beautiful? I have to say, brother-in-law, your sense of beauty is really too different. Brother-in-law, it's not that I want to criticize you, but sigh, marrying my big sister is really a waste of your talent. Earthcracker shook his head and sighed, and in June Moxie's ears, there was even a tone of relief, as if someone was willing to buy an old, sluggish product. What? Someone like Mei Xuyen is not considered a beauty? That kind of peerless beauty, that kind of bearing, that kind of celestial beauty is not considered a beauty in the Tian Fa forest? And listening to Earthcracker's words, it seems like she's a leftover woman. Marrying my big sister is really a waste of your talent. Don't you know that if your big sister goes out to find a husband, all the men in the Xian continent would immediately fill up the Tian-Fa forest and level it? Wait a minute. You can call someone like Mei Shiyan an ugly woman, and say that I'm a waste of my talent. Isn't that saying that I'm so ugly that no one would care about me? Jun Moxie was stunned for a long time, and this soft knife stabbed him until the sky and earth were spinning. He was so angry that his hands and feet were trembling, and his face was deathly pale. Then, his head fell on the table with a bang, and bounced back and forth a few times. Oh God, kill me! I don't want to live anymore. I don't have the face to live anymore. It turns out that I'm actually a handsome man in the eyes of this group of Xian beasts with deformed aesthetic standards. Doesn't that mean Jun Dashao was speechless? It turns out that the aesthetic standards of the Tian-Fa forest are very different from those of the secular world. It's completely opposite. Oh my God! At this moment, Bear Mountain heard the noise and walked over. He glared at Earth Cracker and scolded. What nonsense are you talking about? How is Big Sister not beautiful? How is it a waste of brother-in-law's talent? What do you mean? Earth Cracker was a little dumbfounded. Fourth brother, what did I say? I said what we think of Big Sister, didn't you also? Bear Mountain slapped Tiger King's head with his bare paw and shouted, I'll teach you to talk nonsense again. Then, he said in what he thought was a very low voice, You idiot, are you trying to mess up Big Sister Huang's good things? Do you want Big Sister to continue staying at home? It's rare that brother-in-law doesn't mind Big Sister, and the two of them look at each other so well. It's like a tortoise looking at a mung bean, and you're trying to do something bad when they finally meet? Chapter 791. Bear Mountain slapped him again. What are you? You're just a sh*t stirrer. Hurry up and shut up. If you don't shut up, you're going to feel really uncomfortable later. The Tiger King had completely broken down and was on the verge of tears. Bear King thought that his voice was very soft, but with his voice, even if he intentionally lowered it, it was no different from a normal person's. Who could he hide it from? Right, he could even hide it from the Xian beasts in the distance. Jun Dashao, who had heard everything, was also dumbfounded. What rice? Could it be that his goddess-like little Xue was actually a leftover woman in the Tian-Fa forest that no one cared about? This was simply unimaginable. Bear Mountain saw that Jun Dashao's expression was a little off, and hurriedly came up with a remedy. He walked over like a family man, rubbed his hands, and chuckled. Brother-in-law, what are you thinking about? That Tiger King doesn't know anything, and he even pretends to know. Actually, Big Sister is quite beautiful. Look, this is my wife, she's just passable, her name is… Suddenly, he scratched his head and turned around. What's your name again? Little Dance, he said shyly. Yes, my wife is called Little Dance, she's just passable, definitely not the #1 beauty of Tian-Fa. Brother-in-law, I'm the first brother-in-law to find a wife. This greeting gift. Bear Mountain stretched out his furry hands, looking like a creditor. Here. Jun Dashao, who was so shocked that he wanted to die, took out 3 pills and slapped them into Bear Mountain's hands. Bear King was stunned. Brother-in-law, aren't you messing with me? This is for a peak level 9. If my wife eats it, she'll explode. I'll be a bachelor again. Stupid. As long as there was a choice, there would be no problem. You could let her take the Heavenly Restoration pill first and increase her pure power by 50 years. Then, you could help her consolidate her realm. Wouldn't she be at the peak of level 9? What's wrong with taking the other 2 pills? Jun Moxie reminded the idiot through telepathy. He was also depressed. He was unprepared. Who knew that Bear Mountain would suddenly get a wife? This speed was too fast. The true speed of light. Good. Bear Mountain grinned. Brother-in-law is wise indeed. With your character, I have nothing to say about you being a good match for my big sister. Seeing that the other beast kings had turned their attention to him and their ears perked up, the Bear King glared at them. What are you looking at? You guys won't miss out either. Hurry up and give it to me. Give it to my wife as a greeting gift. You don't even know how to be an uncle. This fellow actually managed to tie up the marriage within an hour, collect the betrothal gifts, and even the dowry. Then, in an extremely short period of time, June Moxie distributed the newly refined pills and hurriedly slipped away. He had no choice but to leave. There were so many Xian beasts, and every single one of them was looking at him with such fervent eyes. He could only hear Long Crane's solemn warning behind him. The matter of the pills is the greatest secret of our Tian Fa forest. If it is leaked out, I'm afraid that Tian Fa will never have a day of peace again. Furthermore, it will implicate big sister and brother-in-law. So, you must keep your mouth shut. If there's anyone who dares to say anything, then that person will be the common enemy of our Tian Fa. June Moxie smiled and disappeared into the Hongjun Pagoda again. He saw a small white shadow moving back and forth, stirring up strong winds. Sometimes it formed a whirlwind. Sometimes it was like flowing clouds. Sometimes it was like thousands of flowers blooming. Sometimes it was like golden lightning falling from the sky. Mei Shuiyan was practicing her new moves. Jun Mo Xie stood there quietly and began to watch. After a long time, he frowned slightly. After a long time, Mei Shuiyan also noticed him. With a whoosh, she hid under a tree and panted lightly. June Moxie laughed and walked to her side. He looked into her eyes for a while until he saw Mei Shuiyan turn her head away in embarrassment. Then, he chuckled and cautiously said, "These moves of yours are indeed powerful. So, it's best to study them first. When you transform into your human form, you can practice them. After all, your current body is very different from your human form. If you really get used to it now, you won't be able to unleash its full power in the future. You must know that habit makes nature. You should understand what I'm saying, right?" Mei Shuiyan was deep in thought. Suddenly, her body shook and her eyes lit up. She turned back to look at him deeply and nodded her head lightly. June Moxie's words solved the biggest question that had been bothering Mei Shuiyan for a long time. Why was it that the profound techniques passed down by the previous generations of Tian Fa, which the Xian beasts had been practicing since they were young, would be so different from what they had expected or what was recorded in the records when they truly had the ability to execute it? Why was it so different from what they had expected? Although it wasn't to the point where it was completely wrong and the power was still very great, it still felt like something was missing. So that's why. The problem lies in the words training hard since childhood. By the time the seniors were able to create their own profound martial arts moves, they had already transformed into human form. And the moves that they created at that time were naturally based on the human body. That was the best way to cultivate it. But they were the seniors of Tian Fa. They couldn't possibly leave their lifetime's worth of precious experience to outsiders. Naturally, they left it all behind in the Tian Fa forest. The Xian beasts of the later generations naturally couldn't be in human form when they were born. But high-level Xian beasts also had the qualifications to practice these moves from young. They trained even harder all the way until they took human form. And this was the natural habit that they had developed before they took human form. But it was this natural habit that prevented them from unleashing the full power of their moves, because the beast form and the human form were ultimately two completely different concepts. But at that time, the habits that had been accumulated over the years would not change because of this. Because of that, it would naturally become twisted. How could they unleash the full power of their moves? Such a simple question, but it had been troubling Tian Fa for so long. Until today, when June Moxie's unintentional words suddenly woke her up. Looking at June Moxie with her bright eyes, Mei Shuiyan's eyes were filled with warmth and gratitude. After a long time, that cute little body suddenly disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Not long after, it came back again. It was holding a ball of sand, and it sprinkled it on the stone surface. It was the sand that Jun Mo Xie had brought in when he poured water into the stone. "You want to talk to me? I'm so stupid." June Moxie suddenly came to a realization. After Mei Xuan was beaten back to her original form, she had indeed lost the ability to speak. But this didn't mean that she couldn't write or recognize words. She could still listen to words. Mei Xuan glanced at him and rolled her eyes. June Moxie clearly saw her smile of disdain. "You really need this lady to remind you of such a small matter and take the initiative to do it. You're really stupid." Although Mei Xuan didn't say it, June Moxie clearly heard it. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. "I want to remind you of something." Mei Xuan stretched out her snow-white claws and wrote on the fine sand. "What is it?" "This matter is about Qing Han, Xiao Yi and the rest." Writing until here, Mei Xuan paused, as if she was considering her words. After a long time, she finally wrote, "Time is fleeting, beauty is fleeting." Time is fleeting? Beauty is fleeting? What does that mean? June Moxie frowned and couldn't help but ask, "Do you want me to marry them as soon as possible?" "No." "Then you, this time." Mei Xuan did not stop. She continued to write eloquently and fluently. It was evident that she had considered this matter for a long time and was very thorough. "I believe that as long as I have a few more years, I will be able to return to the pinnacle, or even surpass the pinnacle. And with your current cultivation, you are also improving day by day. With our cultivation, we can expect to stay together for 1,000 years. It's not an extravagant hope, but Qing Han and Xiao Yi are different from us. Their origin power is really too weak. Even extending their lifespan is impossible in a short period of time, let alone maintaining their most beautiful appearance. Moreover, there is a limit to the consumption of medicinal pills. However, from what I can see, although the aptitude of the two of them is considered excellent, I'm afraid that cultivating to the supreme spirit Xian realm is still a long way off. At the very least, it would be difficult to achieve it within half a cycle of 60 years. Maybe, after a few years, we will still be young, but they will be old. At that time, we don't need to say anything. I'm afraid that they won't stay by your side. And the most beautiful time for a woman in this world is never more than 5 or 10 years. By that time, it will be the cruelest and most fatal blow to both you and them." Mei Xuan tilted her head and looked at June Moxie with her crystal-clear eyes. Her eyes were filled with affection. She lowered her head and wrote, "I don't want you to suffer that kind of blow. Because if there is a separation, it will be for a lifetime." Mei Xuan stopped writing at this point. But June Moxie was dumbstruck. All this time, June Moxie had been thinking about the problem of everyone's lifespan, and he had solved it pretty well. But he had never thought about this. He thought that as long as there was life, it was possible to stay together. But he had never thought that there was one thing in this world that women would rather give up their lives to stay with, but they would always be helpless about it: appearance. To most beautiful women, if they could only choose between beauty and life, they would choose the former without hesitation. This was the saying, "Love beauty to death." Even if they could obtain immortality and eternal life, a peerless beauty would already be white-haired and senile by then, while their lover would still be as handsome and youthful as a young man. This was the cruelest and most fatal blow. How many years did a woman's youth have? Even 5 or 10 years would be too much. He, June Moxie, could not grow old, and so could Mei Xuan. But Guan Qing Han? What about Dugu Xiaoyi? What about his mother? None of them could. Chapter 792. How could Guan Qing Han and Dugu Xiaoyi remain indifferent when they see that June Moxie and Mei Xuan are still as handsome and beautiful as ever? In that case, the tragedy was almost destined. Even if June Moxie doesn't care about it, it's impossible for them to not care about it. But if they really left, how would June Moxie be able to accept it? But if he can't accept it, he won't be able to stop them. Because, since ancient times, beauties are like famous generals, They're not allowed to see their hair turn white. This is the common pride of those peerless beauties. Once this pride was gone, then his heart would be as good as dead. Moreover, it's in contrast to the eternal youth of their sweethearts. If they were to wait until they cultivated to the spirit Xian realm before consuming the pills to increase their strength and prolong their lifespan, then using profound Xian arts to preserve their appearance, then during this period of time, it would be enough for their peerless beauty to slowly fade away, because it's not something that can be done in a short period of time. Mei Shuyan's words weren't alarmist words. She'd given a time limit, and it was already a conservative estimate. It would at least take half a 60-year cycle, which is equivalent to 30 years. This time limit was only achieved with the help of the most precious medicines that June Moxie had provided along the way. This matter that Mei Shuyan had brought up was like a wake-up call to June Moxie. It suddenly made him notice this pressing problem that needed to be solved. This won't do, that won't do. Then what should I do? June Moxie frowned and stood up. He clasped his hands behind his back and paced back and forth, deep in thought. But no matter how much he thought, he still couldn't come up with a solution. His eyes unintentionally swept past the Hongjun Pagoda, and an idea suddenly flashed in June Moxie's mind. Pill formula. That's right, pill formula. There were so many pill formulas in the Hongjun Pagoda. Perhaps there would be a pill that could preserve one's appearance. In the novels of his previous life, there was often a certain kind of elixir that couldn't improve one's power, recover one's primordial qi, or increase one's cultivation. It seemed to be useless, but wasn't the look-preserving elixir that could keep one's appearance permanently what he needed the most right now? In the past, he used to agree with it. How could such a thing with no practical effects be sought after by thousands of people, who would not hesitate to buy it at sky-high prices? So the true meaning was actually here. June Moxie was like a drowning man who had suddenly grabbed onto a life-saving straw. He immediately put his thoughts into action, and earnestly searched through the Hongjun Pagoda's pill formula in his mind. This was the first time he had searched so seriously ever since he had obtained this thing. After an unknown amount of time, he finally found a usable pill formula. However, it was better not to have found it. Because of this result, June Moxie's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. There was hope, but there was no hope. Extreme beauty retaining pill, regardless of level, would grant one eternal youth, reconstruct one's meridians, and attain the extreme female body, making one immortal and imperishable, unable to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Refining level, Hongjun Pagoda 9th level. Required herbs: Adumber grass, ageless root, 3 lives vine, rootless flower. Restriction: can only be consumed by females. Hongjun Pagoda 9th level. And he had only broken through to the 5th level of the Hongjun Pagoda after much difficulty. From the looks of it, every level's breakthrough would be thousands of times harder than the previous ones. The amount of time needed was also far beyond the horizon. Furthermore, there wasn't a single one of the medicinal herbs mentioned, whether it was in Tian Fa Forest or the 9 Nether First Young Master's inheritance. But this was not the most crucial point. The most crucial point was Hongjun Pagoda 9th level. Isn't this toying with me? Is this still considered hope? June Moxie scratched his head in frustration. 9th level. Even a deity would not be able to cultivate to the 9th level within 10 years. Extreme beauty retaining pill, grant eternal youth, reconstruct one's meridians, and attain the extreme female body. June Moxie did not know what the extreme female body was, but just by looking at the description, this pill was definitely not ordinary. It was definitely not something that the beauty-retaining pill in those cultivation novels could compare to. But I'd rather have the beauty-retaining pill. Why doesn't the Hongjun Pagoda have such a common item? Immortal and imperishable, unable to enter the cycle of reincarnation. This was equivalent to becoming a deity after eating one. How could such a pill be easy to make? And in reality, the ranking of the extreme Een beauty retaining pill was only below the 9 revolutions golden pill, which was ranked first. 9 revolutions of heaven, 9 revolutions of creation, 9 revolutions of heaven, 9 revolutions of heaven. Jade Tower dances gracefully. Mei Shuyan looked at June Moxie quietly. After a long time, she seemed to sigh. Slowly wiping away the words on the fine sand, she quietly wrote, "If 10 years is not enough, then what about 500 years? 500 years? Shuiyan, do you have any other methods? You know what to do, don't you?" June Moxie suddenly paused and asked anxiously. According to Senior Tian Fa's ancient legends, in the Misty Mansion, there is a rainbow holy tree. The fruits of that rainbow holy tree are divided into 7 colors, and are known as the 7-colored holy fruits. And in the Heaven Saint Palace of the 3 Holy Lands, there is a heavenly saint lotus pond, and in the pond, there is a 9-segment exquisite lotus. 1 7-colored holy fruit of each color, consumed together with the petals of the 9-segment exquisite lotus, will increase one's xian qi by 500 years. Furthermore, it will allow one's appearance to not change for 500 years, maintaining one's appearance at the moment of consumption. Mei Shuyan seemed to have expended a lot of effort to write these words. Furthermore, there were 7 to 8 interruptions in the middle, as if unwilling to continue writing. But in the end, she still wrote it down. After she finished writing, Mei Shuyan hurriedly wrote again, "If not for the fact that you have that kind of mysterious movement technique, I would definitely not tell you. But you need to know that these 2 places are extremely dangerous places, and the degree of danger is even higher than Tian Fa's ferocious lands. And this tree and lotus are treasures that these 2 places view as life itself. I really do not wish for you to take the risk, but I can also see the weight they hold in your heart. Furthermore, there is also mother, 3rd uncle, and the rest. If you do not do this, in the future, you will definitely have to face life and death again and again. And at that time, your long life will become an eternal burden. Even if you have a heart of stone, I'm afraid you will not be able to endure life and death again and again without being able to do anything about it. Sooner or later, there will come a day when you will be exhausted both physically and mentally. I really do not wish to see that day, but I also do not wish for you to take the risk. So, please promise me, unless you have complete confidence. Otherwise, you absolutely cannot try. At the very least, you must wait until I recover my strength. Little sister Qing Han and the rest can still wait for a few years. When I recover my full strength, I will go with you. That way, no matter what the result is, we will be together, and my heart will be at ease." After writing all this, Mei Shuyan looked at the words on the ground in a daze. After a long time, she slowly turned her head and looked at June Moxie with deep emotions in her eyes. She wrote heavily on the ground with one hand, "Promise me?" June Moxie took a deep breath and said word by word, "I promise you." A solemn expression appeared in Mei Shuyan's eyes. She sighed and wrote, "I originally did not want to say it, but now, we are already in an irreconcilable situation with the 3 Holy Lands. Even if we do not snatch their 9-segment exquisite lotus, they will definitely put us to death. As for the Misty Mansion, they have already revealed their wild ambitions towards Tian Fa when the Misty Mansion was covered in mist. Both sides are already destined to be enemies and not friends." June Moxie smiled calmly and said slowly, "Looks like the enmity between us and these few places is really King fated. Even if we do not want to be enemies, it is impossible." He lowered his eyes and said quietly, 500 years is enough." He slowly clenched his fist and said in a low voice, "This rainbow tree and 9-segment exquisite lotus are both mine. They must be mine." Mei Shuyan looked at him quietly, a trace of mischievousness in her eyes. She wrote, "They are both good girls, you must not let them down." Monsieur, I can see that Miss Han is also very interested in you, and Princess Raimu, your luck with women is really not shallow. June Moxie instantly became awkward and said, Actually, the only one I like the most is you. Mei Shui Yan's small body straightened up and sat cross-legged. She hugged her two snow-white paws in her bosom, raised her head and slanted her eyes. She put on a posture of, I don't believe you at all, and rolled her eyes. But she did not know that this posture was really extremely adorable. Especially when she did it with her current appearance, it was simply too mesmerizing. June Moxie's eyes instantly widened. He grabbed her and kneaded her. Mei Shuyan turned pale with fright. She screamed and miserably twisted away from the devil's claws. Running far away, June Moxie laughed heartily. He felt that all his worries had been swept away. After a long time, he once again sank his consciousness into his sea of knowledge and carefully searched for the pill recipe. He had just broken through to the 5th level, so there should be new pills for him to refine, right? After searching for a while, June Moxie suddenly discovered that there were 3 kinds of pills suitable for him to refine in the 5th level. Grade 3 Spirit Pill, Infinite Pill, Mysterious Pill, Heaven Pill. June Moxie carefully looked at the specific effects of these 3 pills as well as the basic requirements for refining them. Then, he finally decided to refine these 3 pills. He could not help but be tempted. The effects of these 3 pills were really too tempting. After taking the Infinite Pill, it could repair the meridians of the human body, increase the flexibility of the meridians, and expand the dantian. According to June Moxie's understanding, it should be taken by cultivators who were above the realm of Tian Xian. Compared to the previous 3 pills, it was 1 level lower. Mysterious Pill, it could cure any injuries, regenerate flesh and bones, revive the dead, revive the soul, and prolong life. It was extremely magical and could ignore internal and external injuries. Within the moment of taking it, no matter internal or external injuries, it could be completely healed. It could ignore any level. As for the usage limit, it was still limited to the Sky Profound realm. The Heavens Extremes Pill could be consumed by anyone above the Sky Xian realm. Every time one of them was consumed, it would increase one's pure strength by 60 years. The upper limit of each person's consumption was 3 pills, and the interval between consumption was 3 months. Note: it could only increase one's power, not the level of one's soul. In other words, as long as an expert above the realm of Tian Xian took 3 heaven pills in 9 months, he could increase his dark force by 180 years. And there were no side effects. Chapter 793. However, this couldn't raise the level of one's spirit. Looks like matters like this still required one to comprehend and experience it on their own. And this wasn't like reaching the heavens in a single step. For example, if a 3-year-old child were to consume this pill, his physical strength would reach that of an adult, or even far surpass that of an adult, but his intelligence would still remain at that of a 3-year-old. However, to experts above Tian Xian, this didn't seem to be a big deal. The level of one's spirit could be raised during battle. After carefully checking the required medicinal ingredients, June Moxie was finally relieved. He had all the tens of medicinal ingredients needed to refine the medicinal pills. Among them, there were a few that were of especially high quality. Although the medicinal ingredients provided by Tian Fa Forest weren't present, they were present in the 9 Nether First Young Master's inheritance. It was just that their age was greatly exceeded. The highest age of the medicinal ingredients required was 5,000 years and above. But the ones that June Moxie could produce were 10,000 years and above, or even tens of thousands of years old. To be honest, from a cultivator's point of view, using medicinal ingredients that were thousands or even tens of thousands of years old to refine these seemingly useless medicinal pills was a reckless waste of God's gift. The only benefit was that there were no side effects. In fact, the medicinal properties of those high-quality medicinal ingredients were used to balance the medicinal effects to achieve an effect without any side effects. It could be said to be a pure waste, but the starting point of Jun Dashao and his family and friends was too low. They couldn't even consume the higher-quality medicinal ingredients. Only these 3 medicinal pills could be used. Also, Jun Dashao really had too much medicine. Even if he knew it was a waste, he didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache. In for a penny, in for a penny. Jun Moxie decided to start refining the pills immediately. At the very least, he had to refine all the medicinal pills that those people from the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer needed and create his own invincible iron army. He had to complete it at all costs and create a venerable army that could intimidate the entire world, or even a saint army. Jun Moxie thought about it and felt that that scene was really too cool. As for the 7-colored tree and the 9-segment lotus, those 2 places would be the biggest targets of his travels in the martial world. Once Tian Fa's matter is settled, I will immediately set off to search for those 2 miraculous medicines. No regrets can happen to me. 3 days later, when Jun Moxie came out, he was surprised to find that Bear Mountain and the others were gathered outside the Jun residence. Moreover, their eyes were cautiously staring in one direction, the south. The Misty Mansion was located in the Misty Land. Why is everyone gathered here? Did something happen? Jun Moxie asked, puzzled. With the tenacity of these beast kings, they wouldn't have gathered in one place unless there had been an extremely strange turn of events. Brother-in-law, you were in closed-door training, so you don't know about this. The Misty Mansion has been moving for 2 days now, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Long Crane sighed and said, I'm afraid something has happened inside. He wanted to explain further, but Jun Moxie suddenly felt the ground beneath his feet shake with a boom. All of a sudden, a bone-chilling sense of fear rose up within him. It's this shaking. The sealed 9 Nether 14th young master is trying to break the seal again. Long Crane's expression was very serious as he said, It's been happening all these years. It was a little better in the past few years, with only slight tremors. But in the past few years, although the seal is still stable, the tremors are getting bigger and bigger, and the tremors are getting more and more intense. Especially this year, the tremors are getting more intense and frequent. Could it be that the 9 serenities and 14 masters are going to break the seal and come out? Jun Moxie's eyes lit up. Jun Dashao was very interested in the so-called 9 Nether young masters, even more than the strange races. To be honest, Jun Dashao really didn't care much about the strange races. Only the 9 Nether young masters, who came from the same origin as the 9 Nether first young master, would be worthy of Master Dashao's attention. The possibility of this is very high. Although there have been many attacks in the past, they've never been as violent as this. Even if they manage to stabilize it this time, I believe they won't be able to stabilize it the next time. Long Crane had a worried look on his face. If the 9 serenities and 14 masters really come out, I'm afraid it'll be a catastrophe, and the disaster might be even worse than the strange races. What catastrophe? How can the 9 Nether young masters be considered a catastrophe? I've also heard Shui Yen mention the 9 Nether young masters before. Although they're all strong and have the ambition to dominate the Xian continent, they've never really wreaked havoc in the world, nor would they cause harm to the common people. They're just a bunch of arrogant lunatics. How can they be compared to those strange races who are worse than beasts? Besides, if there were no such people in this world, it would be too boring. Jun Moxie's eyes flashed and he chuckled. Come, let's go and take a look. Who knows, maybe we can welcome the 9 serenities and 14 masters to break out of their seclusion. The group arrived at the mysterious Misty Mansion, and the tremors here were even more intense. The Misty Illusory Manor was about 400 to 500 li away from the Jun residence. This kind of distance was truly not considered short. But if the 9 nether 14th young master really managed to break free and clash with the Beast Kings, the June Manor's side would also be affected. After all, a battle of that level could not be judged by common sense. According to what Mei Shuiyan had said previously, all the hills within a radius of a few thousand miles had been flattened. What more, a mere 500 miles? The earth continued to tremble, and a large number of cracks appeared on the ground. Many of the thick and solid branches of the surrounding trees were broken by the violent tremors and fell to the ground. There were also many large boulders jumping crazily on the ground. Not far away, a small mound of soil also jumped and scattered, and then turned into dust, and floated on the ground. June Moxie stood outside the misty mansion, feeling the tremors in his body. His sharp eyes looked at the churning fog in the misty mansion, as if he could see through it from the misty mansion. There was a long, low roar that seemed to be very far away, very long and yet close at hand, penetrating straight into the soul. Long Crane, Bear Mountain, and the others all had serious expressions on their faces as they looked at this strange scene in front of them. Their expressions were full of worry. Suddenly, after a huge tremor, a huge bird with rainbow-colored feathers let out a long cry and rose from the mist of the misty, illusory manor. With a flap of its wingspan was over 100 zhang wide, and its entire body shot into the sky like a bolt of lightning, disappearing without a trace in an instant. However, June Mo Xie was able to clearly judge the moment the bird took flight. That 7-colored giant bird was not a real bird with the characteristics of life. Instead, it was some kind of special energy that was specially created to transmit information. Once it completed its mission, it would immediately dissipate. What is this thing? A phantom phoenix. It really is a phantom phoenix. Long Crane groaned. It finally appeared. The other Beast Kings also had a panic-stricken look on their faces. After all, the Beast Kings of Tian Fa had always been thick-skinned and bloodthirsty. So, the incident must have been very shocking. A phantom phoenix? What is that thing? Isn't it something that belongs to Tian Fa? June Moxie looked at the place where the phantom phoenix disappeared and asked softly. The so-called phantom phoenix is a strange thing that was left behind by the experts of the Misty Mansion when the seal was completed. It is called a phantom phoenix. At that time, the expert had explained that if the seal could no longer suppress the 9 serenities and 14 masters one day, the phantom phoenix would transform into the shape of a phoenix and fly back to the Misty Mansion in advance to report the news. The phantom phoenix will appear, and the seal will be broken. Long Crane's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, and the experts of the Misty Mansion will also rush here in the shortest time possible. Battle the 9 nether 14th young master. We must kill him or force him back to the sealed land to seal him again. But no matter what the situation is, a world-shaking battle is inevitable, and Tian Fa Forest would inevitably suffer a calamity as well. Since the incident happened here, the battle will definitely take place here. There was a strong anger in Bear Mountain's expression. The participants of this battle will at least be Saint King level experts, and there may even be a few Holy Emperor level experts. In fact, it wouldn't be difficult to destroy half of Tian Fa Forest in a battle of this level if one were to say it seriously. The Misty Mansion had tricked many of the Tian Fa seniors into being trapped in the mist of the Misty Mansion to guard the seal for such a long time. It's fine if that's the case, but do you want to destroy our home? Yes. That must be the case. Long Crane's expression turned ugly. It seems that when the Misty Mansion was sealed, they had already planned for today. Their goal was not only to seal the 9 serenities and 14 masters, but also to destroy the Tian Fa Forest. They even wanted to use us to fight the 9 serenities and 14 masters first, and then clean up the mess and reap the benefits. Damn it. Really damn it. All the Beast King's expressions were instantly filled with indignation. With such a connection, everyone understood the importance of this matter. towards the sinister intentions of the misty, illusory manner. He could no longer tolerate it. Everyone, there is no need to be so pessimistic. This battle may not be unavoidable, right? Perhaps we can lure the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters to fight somewhere else. Won't we be able to avoid the tragedy of Tian-Fa then? June Moxie's expression also darkened. If that was really the case, was his home going to be destroyed right after he moved here? So he made this suggestion. Although this method was a way to divert the trouble, and not solve the root of the problem, it was the most beneficial for Tian-Fa. Brother-in-law, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters who had just broken the seal is at the weakest, because he needs to break the seal, and the consumption will be huge. Only then will it be the best time to subdue him again. With the 9 Nether 14th young Master's heaven-defying recovery abilities, even if it's just for a day or half a day, it'll be more than enough for him to recover a terrifying amount of strength. That's something that the 3 Holy Lands and the misty illusory manor will not be able to tolerate. Chapter 794. June Moxie snorted. Let's not talk about the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters first. We can't stand the 3 Holy Lands or the Misty Mansion. Are we going to destroy them all? What a load of nonsense! What kind of logic is this? Brother-in-law, whether this matter is reasonable or not, there's nothing we can do about it. Long Crane said bitterly. The illusory phoenix has already left, which means that the seal can only be maintained for a short period of time. The true experts from the misty illusory manor and the 3 Holy Lands will definitely rush here as soon as possible, and they will all be Saint King and Holy Emperor level experts. If we don't let them in, it means that we will become the enemies of the entire human race. Then, they will have an excuse to join forces to deal with Tian-Fa. And it will be logical. If we let them in, even if we suffer some losses after this battle, Tian-Fa will still be Tian-Fa after a few years of recuperation. Besides, they came in to deal with the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters for the sake of the people. We have no reason to not let them in. In fact, we have to help them. What is this? If that's the case, aren't we letting them do whatever they want? They came here to cause trouble and destroy our homes. Do we still have to cheer for them and welcome them with a smile? This is bullsh*t. June Moxie shook his head. Also, since they are Saint King and Holy Emperor level experts, do they still need our permission to enter the Tian-Fa forest? Can't they just enter directly? Who can stop them? If we stop them, we will become the enemies of the entire human race? I would like to ask, do the people of the world treat Xian beasts as their companions? Is killing Xian beasts wantonly and hunting Xian Dan done by races other than humans? Besides, the people of the world, have the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters really harmed the people of the world? The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters only wanted to conquer the 3 Holy Lands and the Misty Mansion. What does it have to do with the world? Had the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters ever taken the initiative to harm Tian-Fa Xian beasts? Why should you help those hypocrites against him? Do you really have the so-called standpoint you speak of? June Moxie asked sharply. As soon as this question was asked, all the Beast Kings looked at each other in dismay. That's right. Before this, when it came to dealing with the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, there was only one resounding slogan. For the people of the world. Everyone knew that the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters was a peerless demon. Once it came out, it would be a catastrophe. But in actual fact, after the 9 Nether young Masters appeared, their slogan was very clear. Although their ambitions were great, whether it was unifying the world or commanding the world, it didn't seem to have anything to do with the common people of the world. Because what were the common people? The common people are the common people. No matter how strong the ruler was, the common people were not affected at all. All the common people wanted was a simple life. As long as they could eat their fill, wear warm clothes, and continue living, it was fine. As for who the ruler was, the common people would not care much. There must be a ruler in the world, but who the ruler was not important to the common people. The only ones who were truly threatened by them were the higher-ups of this continent, the 3 holy lands and the misty, illusory manor. As for the common people of the world, they were the targets that the 9 nether young masters, these arrogant lunatics, did not even bother to look at, just like how dinosaurs did not care about ants. They would only pay attention to experts who were strong enough to threaten their rule. Brother-in-law, you mean? Could it be that this is just an excuse? Long Crane's eyes widened in disbelief. No one would be able to accept the fact that a belief that had lasted for thousands of years was shattered in an instant. The common people of the world, the common people of the world. How can everything involve the common people of the world? These bunch of hypocrites! June Moxie raged. Why are all these birdmen so hypocritical? Can't they just say that they don't want to be suppressed by others and not be ruled by another strong person? Why do they have to come up with such a ridiculous excuse? It's like they're all sages. There's always a need for an excuse, and a dignified one is always better. Bear Mountain said in a low muffled voice. Excuse? June Moxie's sharp eyes looked at the misty mansion and said, if that's the case, you guys can leave first and prepare to welcome the Saint Kings in. I'll stay here for a while longer. I really don't want to face those *T hypocrites. Long Crane and the rest sighed and bade farewell to June Moxie before leaving. June Moxie was the only one left in this place after a while. No matter what, I will not allow you hypocrites to destroy my home, the home of so many simple Chien beasts. June Moxie thought fiercely in his heart. Perhaps it's very satisfying to bully Tian Fa, and make use of Tian Fa. But now, the situation is different. Because I, June Moxie, am in Tian Fa right now. I'm not like those simple-minded Chien beasts. The expression on June Moxie's face fluctuated, as if he was thinking about something intensely. After a long time, he suddenly gritted his teeth and a crazed expression appeared on his face. I, June Moxie, will never be a stray dog. Even if it's the Holy Emperor and the Misty Mansion, it's still not enough. The heavens are watching the actions of man. Since I've settled down in Tian Fa on the eve of the 9 serenities and 14 masters breaking the seal, it means that the heavens will not tolerate the despicable actions of you hypocrites. I will let those sanctimonious hypocrites know that those who scheme against others will be schemed against by others. Let's see who can scheme better and who can play the other to death. June Dashao's body suddenly disappeared from where he was standing. His physical body suddenly turned into an illusory shadow. In a flash, even this illusory shadow also disappeared. The tremors on the ground also became stronger. The power that seemed to want to destroy everything under the ground also seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. It was as if that ancient demon god would return to the world at any time. A sharp whistling sound rang out from the mist of the Misty Mansion. In the 2 months that the June family moved to the Tian Fa forest and made arrangements for their permanent residence, the entire continent was peaceful and tranquil. A few days after the June family's retreat, a lot of strange people arrived in Tianxiang City. They were inquiring about something and asking about something. The original location of the June family's mansion would have several people entering it every night. Especially the small courtyard that June Moxie used to live in, it was a place that those mysterious people would stop by. Then, there was also the grave of the affectionate couple. That strange place that suddenly appeared overnight attracted even more people. Every blade of grass and every tree was carefully investigated. Everyone who had anything to do with the June family had been investigated by unknown people during this period of time. Regarding this phenomenon, the Emperor of Tianxiang, Yang Huainong, adopted Li Yuren's strategy. He let it go, never asked about it, and acted as if he didn't know anything. Finally, after half a month, these mysterious people disappeared without a trace overnight. There was no trace left, as if they had never appeared in the first place. Not even a single thing in the June family was touched. Not even a blade of grass or a tree was destroyed. At the same time, all the great families on the continent were in an uproar, because the Duanmu and Sikong families, which originally belonged to the middle tier of power on the continent, suddenly declined overnight. The businesses that belonged to these two families were cut off overnight. All the business networks, all the customers, cut off contact with these two families almost at the same time. This was simply unimaginable. Because no matter who was behind this, it would not be done so cleanly and neatly, without any casualties. But such an unimaginable thing had happened in such a bizarre way. It had really happened. The products produced by the private workshops of the two great families, no matter how exquisite and popular they were, all of them became unsold overnight. Even the products that could be sold for a sky-high price had become worthless dog shit after this one night. There was no place to sell the backlog of goods, and all the import channels had been cut off inexplicably. Furthermore, many problems had appeared within the families. Many of the children from the side branches had started to set up their own mountains, leaving the original scope of the families. These children from the side branches had also taken away a lot of the family's business. But the strange thing was that as long as it was the business they took away, it was normal. There was no impact at all. Even those businesses that no one was interested in yesterday, once they left the original family, they immediately returned to their original status, and even had room for a large increase in value. In just one night, these two families were almost at the end of their ropes. The only thing they could do now, other than to live off their savings, seemed like there was nothing else. But the two great families did not express any dissatisfaction. They only silently endured everything. The magnificent jewel halls that Blizzard Silver City had set up in the various countries of the continent were also closed down at the same time. Resources and personnel were not moved, but everything was sent back to Blizzard Silver City at the same time. Blizzard Silver City also did not raise any objections, as if this matter was very normal. On the contrary, the Dongfang family, who had announced their comeback, was not suppressed at all. If the other three families were suppressed because of the June family, then the Dongfang family, which was closer to the June family, was showing a trend of prosperity. But what was going on? 1 month after the June family retreated, the Dongfang family announced their comeback. The Xian beasts left Tianfa and the Sword Peak collapsed. Since this oath had been broken, even if the Dongfang family knew that it was not a good time to make a comeback, the oath had been broken, and the whole world was watching. They had no choice but to make a comeback. Moreover, there were many people who were urging, waiting, and watching, especially the members of the Dongfang family. They could not wait any longer. For a whole 10 years, everyone in the Dongfang family had been holding back too much. They desperately needed to vent. They needed to use the reputation of the Dongfang family as assassins to prove the glory of the Dongfang family in the past. After careful consideration, the old lady of Dongfang continued to observe for another month, thinking that even if the 3 Holy Lands were to suppress them, it would only be a blockade of all their businesses, and it would not be a big deal for the Dongfang family to return to their previous life of retirement. After all, with the status of the 3 Holy Lands, they could not do something as despicable as openly attacking the Dongfang family. After much consideration, under the strong appeal of many family members, the old lady was in a dilemma and finally announced her comeback. Announcing to the continent, the family of assassins of the past had returned. Following that, something strange really happened. During this period of time, it has been 2 nights. Many brothers asked me, "Aren't you anxious to see your monthly votes overtaken?" Haha, I am very anxious. Moreover, I have a few chapters in my hands, but I can't use them all. That day, when I went home, my mom said, "Great, we can have a comfortable new year this year." When she said this, she seemed very satisfied. I calculated carefully. Not counting growing up, I joined the army after graduation, and I spent the new year in the army for several years. After coming back, I went to work in another city. I only returned on the 29th of the 12th month, and left in a hurry on the morning of the second day. Until 2009, when I returned home, I was lying in the hospital with a broken leg during the new year. How could my mom and dad have the mood to celebrate the new year? In 2010, in order to make money to pay off the debt, I still spent the whole night writing on the 30th of the Chinese New Year. This year, it is 2011. No matter what, I have to spend the new year with the two old people. These few days, I have been writing 8,000 to 9,000 words every day, trying to save a chapter for the new year. Since the 27th of the 12th month, I have been going back to my hometown to accompany my parent. It is not that I do not want the monthly votes, but there is something more important than the monthly votes, and that is my family, my parents, and my family. After 2 chapters in a row, I do not have the face to ask for the monthly vote. Therefore, I have not asked for the vote. I only hope that my brothers and sisters can understand my feelings. This year, I want to spend the new year with my family, and enjoy the new year to the fullest. After the new year, I will continue to release them. Thank you. During the new year, I will automatically release 2 chapters every day. If I have enough chapters, I will automatically release 4 chapters on the night of the Chinese New Year to celebrate the new year with everyone. Chapter 795. Ever since the old lady of Dongfang announced the Dongfang family's comeback, the Dongfang family's assassination orders had been pouring in like snowflakes. It was as if the whole world had accepted this family of assassins overnight. The price of every order was sky-high. For example, the price of assassinating an Earth Xian expert used to be 100,000 silvers. But now, people were offering 200,000 silvers, even 300,000 silvers. The price had doubled. However, the people they were supposed to assassinate were all experts. If there were 1 or 2 such orders, the Dongfang family would not be afraid. They would even be pleasantly surprised. Even if there were a few more orders, they would be able to swallow them all. But now there were hundreds, thousands, even thousands of orders. Among them, there were Tian Xian, Xin Xian, and even supreme martial artists. And not just a few. 4 of the current 8 great supremes had actually appeared on the list of people entrusted to him. No matter how powerful the Dongfang family was, they would not be able to swallow all of them. If they were to force it, then the only result would be that all the outstanding assassins of the Dongfang family would die in these missions. Even the 3 Dongfang swords would not be able to survive. The Dongfang family would completely collapse. However, the Dongfang family had officially announced their comeback. If they were to retreat now, then, it would be equivalent to being suppressed by these missions. If that happened, the Dongfang family would become the eternal laughingstock of the whole continent. From then on, the Dongfang family would no longer exist in the martial world. But if they were to accept all of them, the result could only be the same: destruction. The Dongfang family could be said to be facing death if they advanced, and death if they retreated. They could not advance or retreat, and there was no way out. Every order had a reason, and it was a very legitimate reason, in line with the Dongfang family's requirements. Many of the orders were even sent with deposits. There was no lack of sincerity, and these orders were sent separately, in batches. Since the Dongfang family had returned, the contacts who had been stationed in various places naturally had to be sent out again. These people had been idle for 10 years, and all of them had been bored to the point of insanity. Who didn't want to show off their skills when they went out. Therefore, the informants of the Dongfang family, who had been assigned to the contact points in the 10 regions, were revived at the same time. And every contact had received quite a number of orders. In the past, this kind of thing was basically in the scope of big business. Even when the Dongfang family was in its heyday, it was still very rare. Therefore, every contact felt that they had made a great contribution. They accepted the requests one by one and sent them to headquarters. One person might not bring a lot, or even a very good result. But when all the results were gathered together, the result directly changed. Such a rich result could drive the Dongfang family to death at once. The old lady of Dongfang clearly understood that all this was clearly the revenge of the three Holy Lands. The most secretive way of revenge, and the most naked way of revenge. They wouldn't do it openly, because they would never accept the condemnation of the world. But they used this kind of legitimate way to drive the Dongfang family to death. But as long as it was someone with eyes who couldn't see it, or they were forcing June Moxie, who had retreated into the Tian-Fa forest, to come out again, because all of this was because of June Moxie. Dongfang family headquarters. Mother, should we inform Mo Xie? There are so many orders, and all of them have a time limit. We definitely can't finish them all. Dongfang Wenjian asked cautiously. The old lady of Dongfang was sitting on the chair, thinking about something with a gloomy face. When she heard this, she immediately flew into a rage. You're Mo Xie's uncle, and you actually have the cheek to say such words? Isn't this all a plot by the three Holy Lands to deal with my grandson? If you inform Mo Xie, wouldn't it be exactly what they want? If Mo Xie comes back, and something happens to him because of this, how will you face your sister? Even if the Dongfang family is really dead, we can't drag my grandson down with us. The old lady's eyes flashed coldly. If anyone secretly tells Mo Xie, don't blame me for being merciless. The Sikong family and the Duanmu family suffered such a blow, and even though we know that it was because of Mo Xie, those two families still chose to endure it silently, and didn't ask for help from Mo Xie. Could it be that we, as Mo Xie's maternal uncle's family, are his relatives less important than those two families? Q-Sword, aren't you ashamed to say such words? Dongfang Wenjian's face was full of shame. His original intention was just to ask, but he didn't expect to be reprimanded mercilessly by his mother. Dongfang Wenqing sighed and said, Mother is right. Their goal is to make us seek help from the Tian-Fa forest, since they've been able to force us into such a situation without even batting an eyelid. I'm even sure that they must have prepared an extremely powerful move. As long as Mo Xie appears, what awaits him will definitely be a fatal blow. After such a huge loss, they will definitely not allow Mo Xie to live, and they won't use the same lineup as before. The danger in this is too great. But this also proves that Mo Xie is still safe in the Tian-Fa forest. They don't dare to go in, so they resorted to such underhanded methods. I didn't expect the three Holy Lands to be so despicable and shameless. The old lady of Dongfang's face was gloomy. So, the more they force us, the more we can't ask for help from Tian-Fa. Remember, in the Dongfang family, if I hear such words again, I will immediately drive them out of the family, without mercy. Yes. Then, Mother, what about these orders? No matter what, we need to have a countermeasure. Dongfang Wenqing asked. Since the orders have been accepted, they will definitely not allow a refund. What we need to do now is to inform them that the price they gave is unreasonable. Make an issue out of the price. The old lady of Dongfang smiled wisely. All the missions are not allowed to be carried out without permission. Then, inform all the contacts that from now on, they are not allowed to accept new orders. Also, for those orders that had already been accepted, the original price would be tripled. Let them negotiate carefully, the longer the better. If there is anyone who doesn't agree to the price increase, immediately cancel the order. Mother's brilliant plan. Dongfang Wenjian's eyes lit up. Brilliant plan? It's just a temporary expedient. This plan might not have much of an effect. At most, it could only buy a little more time to turn the situation around. If I'm not wrong, all the people who released the information will choose to accept the price increase we proposed. The old lady of Dongfang furrowed her brows and said, "So, we don't have much time, and the reputation of the Dongfang family cannot be tarnished in my hands. So, we can only take one step at a time. Once the orders are confirmed, we will still have to take action. You must be prepared for this. That's not a problem. What we lack the most now is time to switch. As long as we have enough time, we may be able to accept those orders. And, if we can accept all these orders, not only will our Dongfang family regain its former glory, we will also be able to create a more splendid glory." With this brilliant plan of Dongfang, the old lady of Dongfang as the foundation, Dongfang Wenqing was obviously more optimistic about the future development. Don't be blindly optimistic because of a temporary success. The situation in front of us is absolutely unfavorable. The 3 Holy Lands are not that easy to deal with. Do the 3 of you know what I'm most afraid of now? The old lady of Dongfang's face was solemn, and she seemed to be a little worried. "Well, Mother, do you have any other concerns? As long as we have enough time to turn the situation around, with the strength of our Dongfang family, we will be able to solve those missions no matter what. At worst, we can just gather our superior forces to solve it." Dongfang Wenjian asked in surprise. "What I'm most worried about now is that those clients will really agree to take back the orders, or only keep a small portion of the orders. Then, the situation will become really serious," the old lady said. "That's impossible. If they take back the orders, or only keep a small portion of the orders, it will be very beneficial to us. Why would the situation become serious instead?" Dongfang Wenjian was obviously even more confused. On the contrary, the old lady of Dongfang Wenqing had a solemn and thoughtful look on her face. Obviously, she had thought of something. "Idiot, if the situation really develops into that situation, it means that the 3 Holy Lands and Mo will really shed all pretense of cordiality. Let me give you the simplest example. We received a target with a sky-high price, and the target's strength is very low. However, there is a Holy Land powerhouse hidden by his side that we can't deal with. Think about it, what will happen next?" The old lady said hatefully, "Do you really think that the 3 Holy Lands won't do such a thing? If the target's strength exceeds the scope of the information provided by the client, the responsibility is not on us. We have a lot of reasons to say that," Dongfang Wenjian said. "What do you mean by exceeding the scope of the information provided? Who made the rule that the person who helps the target must be the target's subordinate? Guests, high officials, they are all included. And the 3 Holy Lands have people like that. Can't you even understand this point? If that's the case, it's equivalent to a deadly trap waiting for us to fall into." Dongfang Wenqing let out a long sigh and said, "Mother, you're right. We really have to guard against this. If that's the case, we can just give up on the mission." Dongfang Wenjian said angrily, "We know it's a trap. Do we still have to step into it? Give up? We can indeed give up, but that's a sky-high price. Once we give up, we will have to pay several times the compensation. We may be able to afford 1 mission, but what about 10? 100? What should we do? What about the Dongfang family? How can the Dongfang family afford it now? If that's the case, then we're really done for. Since we can do that, why don't the 3 Holy Lands do it directly?" The second master of Dongfang understood the gravity of the situation and could not help but be cautious. Chapter 796. The old lady said slowly, "The 3 Holy Lands still want face, but this face will not be preserved for long. Sooner or later, this kind of assumption of ours will appear. So, we have to be very careful when we choose our missions. Take the orders from those few supreme martial artists as an example. It's obviously beyond our capabilities. So, we can just use this reason to reject those orders." The old lady said, "The targets of negotiation start from the lowest level, then concentrate our strength to attack those with higher levels of xianqi. A sharp light flashed in the old lady's eyes. This time they want to force us. But, isn't this a good opportunity for our Dongfang family to grow stronger? As the saying goes, seeking riches comes with risk. Everything has its pros and cons. A crisis may not necessarily be unable to turn into an opportunity. That kind of business that is guaranteed to be profitable is also the most difficult to produce profits, and this kind of crisis, where danger lurks everywhere, is the best opportunity to open up the situation. Since we want to create glory again, how can we not go through trials and tribulations? Even if we perish again, what's there to be afraid of? Mother is right. The three Holy Lands want to use this kind of method to force us, and also force Mo Xie to appear. But, why can't we let them try to steal a chicken and come home shorn? Right now, we're using the small to fight against the big. If we lose, no one will laugh at us. But if we really win, then it'll be really glorious. Dongfang Wenqing smiled and said in agreement. Looking at her three sons walking out, the smug look on the old lady of Dongfang's face disappeared without a trace. Instead, it was replaced by a thick layer of worry. She murmured, "Using the small to fight against the big? It's really using the small to fight against the big. If we can get through this, then everything will be fine. And the Dongfang family will also stand tall because of this, and no one will be able to shake its foundation. But even if that's the case, this time, the Dongfang family's trial is truly difficult to overcome. Duanmu, Xikong, Blizzard Silver City, and the Dongfang family were all feeling very sad and sullen. But the people from the three Holy Lands were even more sullen to the extreme. At the very least, they were 10,000 times sullen. Previously, they had split into two groups. One group had combined the strength of the three families and sent 600 experts to Blizzard Silver City to ambush Jun Moxie, Mei Shuyan, and the Xian beasts of Tianfa. However, they had all been wiped out. Even the number one expert on that path, the King of Hermitage, Missouri Wudao's younger brother, Mo Xiaoyao, did not survive. Such a result, such a huge loss, was undoubtedly something that no one had expected. The moment he received the grievous news, Mo Wudao, the master of Hermitage who had always been elegant and steady, and whose expression would not change even if a mountain collapsed in front of him, vomited blood on the spot and passed out. Mo Xiaoyao was Mo Wudao's only relative, and the two brothers had depended on each other for more than 400 years. How deep was their relationship? Now that such a grievous news had arrived, how could Mo Wudao not feel his heart and soul shatter? When the master of the Immortal Palace regained consciousness, he immediately wanted to send out his troops to flatten the Jun family, Xikong, Duanfang family, and the other large families. However, he was stopped by the Saint King and other seniors in the Immortal Palace. No matter what kind of losses the three Holy Lands had suffered, it was still unjustifiable for them to lay their hands on a secular family. Furthermore, there were 9 saints in Tianxiang. This force was enough to shake the heavens and earth. After his decision was stopped, Mo Wudao changed his tune and requested to change the original plan. He wanted the 9 saints to kill Mei Shuyan and Jun Moxie to take revenge for his brother. This suggestion received unanimous approval. No matter what, Mo Wudao's identity was still the master of Hermitage. If his suggestions were rejected time and time again, then there would be no meaning for him to be the master. How would he be able to convince the masses? That was why the 9 saints besieged Mei Shuyan. However, what the Saint Kings did not expect was that Mei Shuyan had indeed disappeared because of the 9 saints' attack. Or rather, her soul had been destroyed. However, her final attack had forcefully dragged the 3 saints of the illusory blood sea to the grave with her. This was a huge loss that could not be made up for. The lord of the illusory blood sea, Huyan Aobua, was enraged. Faced with the rage of the illusory blood sea, Hermitage and the great golden city were secretly gloating, This was because the saints on his side were all fine. At most, they had suffered some minor injuries, which was not a big deal. However, the illusory blood sea had lost 3 saints. In the future, they would definitely be the weakest in the competition between the 3 Holy Lands. There was no doubt about this outcome. Therefore, the 3 Holy Lands calmed themselves down and quietly waited for news from the other 6 saints. However, there was no news for a long time. This inevitably made them anxious. Weren't the saints a little too sloppy? Mei Shuyan was already finished. How could a mere June Moxie stir up a storm? As they waited anxiously, the remaining members of the 3 Holy Lands who were stationed in Tianxiang finally sent back news. The other 6 saints had disappeared without a trace, and the entire June family had already moved out of the capital of Tianxiang. Those saints did not stay with the rest of the people. Instead, they were sent far away. Therefore, these people did not know that something had happened to them. With no news from the 6 saints for a long time, the 3 Holy Lands finally could not wait any longer and went to investigate. At this time, they realized that an extremely shocking battle had taken place south of Tianxiang City. The situation was like a landslide. The river flowed backward. After that battle, the June family did not suffer any casualties. On the 2nd day after that battle, the entire June family moved to the Tianfa forest. It had been a full 10 days since the people from the 3 Holy Lands came to investigate. The 6 saints had disappeared without a trace. Reckless idiots. After another few days, the experts from the 3 Holy Lands who were stationed at the peak of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains all year round sent back news. The demon pupil saint, Lung Tong, had come to the Pillar of Heaven's mountains dispiritedly. He said that he wanted to live in seclusion and quietly wait for the war for seizing the heavens. Only then did the leaders of the 3 Holy Lands know that apart from the demon pupil saint, Lung Tong, the other saints had all died. All of them had died in the hands of June Moxie's master. This was a shocking news that could shatter the heavens and split the earth. When they heard this news, the leaders of the 3 Holy Lands almost thought that the sky had collapsed. June Moxie's master had fought 1 against 5, and the result was that all 5 saints had died. No one knew what Lung Tong had said. In any case, all the crimes had been placed on June Moxie's master. Lung Tong had kept his promise and kept June Moxie's secret. But it also expressed that he was dispirited and was unwilling to return to the Holy Lands. He would rather stay at the Pillar of Heaven's mountains and wait for the war for seizing the heavens. Along with the letter, there was also a sentence from Lung Tong. It was only 4 sentences, but each one was heart-wrenching. When Mo Wudao saw these few sentences, he gave up on the idea of letting Lung Tong return to the Holy Lands, and he completely erased these few sentences, not revealing them to the public. But many of the saints who had already seen it were asking themselves this question. These few sentences were like a morning bell, striking into the hearts and souls of everyone. What crime did Tianfa commit? Is it worth it to be so oppressed? Could the war for seizing the heavens be the source of all evil? Is the safety of the continent an excuse? When have you ever cared about the lives of the world? But Mo Wudao did not take these words to heart, because the only thing on his mind right now was revenge. Revenge for his own brother Mo Xiaoyao. A blood feud that could not live under the same sky. Blizzard Silver City still had 600 dead souls. This hatred was also irreconcilable. 9 saints, 8 had fallen, and only 1 remained. But he would not return to the Holy Lands. This was a huge setback that the 3 Holy Lands had never experienced in the past 10,000 years. But how were they going to take revenge? June Moxie had already slipped into the Tianfa forest like a slippery eel. A place like the Tianfa forest, even if the senior Holy Emperor was willing to help, he would still be at a disadvantage if he went in alone. Furthermore, from the saint level onwards, although they still belonged to the 3 Holy Lands in name, they were no longer under the control of the sect leaders of the 3 Holy Lands. Mo Wudao, Huyen Aobo, and the Supreme Golden City's City Lord Shi Ruochen discussed for a long time. The three of them each had their own plans. Huyen Aobo's suggestion was: capture all the people from the Dongfang family, Blizzard Silver City, Sikong family, and Duanmu family, or kill them all. This would definitely lure Jun Moxie out. However, the other two didn't agree with this crazy suggestion. If they really did it, the Holy Emperor Palace would not let them off. Using a power far beyond the mortal world to slaughter the people of the mortal world, this kind of inhumane thing was better not to do. Mo Wudao put forward another suggestion. With the current situation of the big families, they did not use force at all. Instead, they used open schemes to kill people. If they forced the four families into a corner, he did not believe that they would not look for Jun Moxie. Moreover, this was a series of schemes with endless backups. As long as these families were still in this world, the three Holy Lands would have endless methods to continue this conspiracy. As long as Jun Moxie left the Tian Fa forest, everything would be fine. But Shi Ruochen had other plans. But in this situation where it was 2 against 1, he agreed with Mo Wudao's suggestion, which was a gentler method. Even though he still felt wronged and unbalanced in his heart. But the main culprits were Jun Moxie and his master. It had nothing to do with anyone else. The only thing that could comfort the three leaders was that Venerable Mei was dead. Also, Jun Moxie's master fought against 5 saints. Although all 5 saints died in the end, they believed that Jun Moxie's master did not have it easy either. There might be people in this world who could win against 5 saints, but it was impossible without paying a price. If Jun Moxie's master could really kill 5 saints without suffering any injuries, then why would the Jun family need to run? Therefore, this was simply a matter of fact. So the 3 families were waiting for Jun Moxie to show himself, because the Holy Emperor Palace had promised that once Jun Moxie left the Tian Fa forest and appeared in the world again, the 3 Holy Lands would allow the saints to kill him. If Jun Moxie's master also appeared, they could even send out many Saint King level experts. Chapter 797. But contrary to everyone's expectations, even though the Sikong and Duanmu families had fallen into an awkward situation where they could not make ends meet, they still held on with all their might, and did not have the slightest intention of asking for help from Jun Moxie. On the other hand, the Silver Blizzard City had sent all of their people back to the city. Blizzard Silver City was currently in the midst of reconstruction, and sending so many people back at once was a burden, but at the same time, it also increased the labor force. So Blizzard Silver City did not have any abnormalities. The Dongfang family had clearly been forced to the end of their tether. But this family was even more stubborn, and would rather die than inform Jun Moxie. This series of unexpected changes made the 3 Holy Lands a little anxious, especially Mo Wudao. Looks like they were still too lenient. Mo Wudao was just about to give the order to proceed with the next step of the operation, but something happened. Because at this time, the Holy Emperor Palace unexpectedly received an emergency summon from the Misty Mansion. Immediately send Saint Kings and Holy Emperor-level experts to the Tian Fa forest, and cooperate with the experts from the Misty Mansion to stop the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters from breaking the seal. Just as the 4 Saint Kings and 2 Holy Emperors of Hermitage were about to leave, Mo Wudao stopped one of the Holy Emperor. Senior Zhan, this junior would like to ask you for a favor on this trip to the Tian Fa forest. Mo Wudao's expression and voice were both very respectful. What is it? This Senior Zhan, who was in a hurry to leave, stopped. Senior, you will definitely see that little thief Jun Moxie when you go to Tian Fa. Mo Wudao smiled and said, I hope Senior can help me pass a message. Dongfang Duanmu Sikong Silver City is finished. Dongfang Duanmu Sikong Silver City is finished? Just this one sentence? Yes. Alright. I'll remember it. I'll definitely help Sect Master pass on the message. That Senior Jean flashed up and disappeared under the blue sky and white clouds in the blink of an eye. Mo Wudao's white robe fluttered in the wind as he gazed at the empty horizon. He suddenly smiled and said, "June Moxie, even if you little thief crawled into a mouse hole, I will make you crawl out obediently to receive your death. After killing my younger brother, you actually want to be a coward and drag out an ignoble existence? There's no such thing as a bargain in this world. I, Mo Wudao, want to let you know that there are some people in this world that you can't afford to offend. There are some troubles that you can't make up for even if you sacrifice your entire family's lives." June Moxie exerted the yin-yang escape art with all his might. When he was about 400 to 500 feet down, he could already feel that the effect of the mist in the misty mansion had weakened. Using the yin-yang escape art, he could feel that he had already broken free from the restrictions of the mist and could move about freely underground. Looks like the mist in the misty mansion is of a much lower level than the 9 Nether First Young Master's restriction on the snow mountain. No, there's no room for comparison between the two, June Moxie thought to himself. With a flash, he traversed quickly underground. When he had traversed several hundred feet, he suddenly felt a strange, obscure ripple in front of him. And the further he went, the harder it felt. It was as if the soil and rocks here had all turned into steel. Looks like this is the restriction that the misty illusory manor set up. June Moxie stopped and furrowed his brows slightly. Or perhaps this is the exit to the 9 Nethers? Just at this moment, right in front of June Moxie, a loud roar suddenly rang out. This roar was like the eruption of a volcano, surging out. Facing this sudden and unexpected roar, June Moxie only felt a roar in his head. The power of the 5th level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune protected his entire body, but it could not withstand the attack of this horrifying sound wave. Instantly he felt dizzy. After a long while, he finally regained his senses. All he saw was that the soil around him was trembling violently. This legendary 9 Serenities and 14 Masters is indeed very strong. No wonder he's a legendary character. June Moxie could not help but be shocked. June Moxie could clearly hear the unwillingness and anger contained in that roar just now, and a kind of untamed arrogance. He was already so close to the legendary character, but June Moxie suddenly hesitated. What if he doesn't appreciate it after coming out? Then what? The matter of releasing the 9 Nether 14th Young Master was a double-edged sword. If he was not careful, he might hurt both himself and others. He might even hurt himself first before hurting others. Those bastards from the 3 Holy Lands may be despicable, but the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters was obviously a peerless demon who would not bow down to anyone. He had never hurt a normal person before, but that did not mean that he would not hurt a normal person now, or ever. At the same time, not everyone knew how to repay a debt of gratitude. There were many cases of people attacking their benefactors after being rescued, and it was not uncommon. June Moxie had to be on guard. Who could say that this 9 Serenities and 14 Masters was not an ingrate? June Moxie calculated silently. He deduced bit by bit from the 9 Nether First Young Master's letter, as well as the past of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, that Mei Shiyan had mentioned. If this 9 Serenities and 14 Masters really came out, he would undoubtedly be a huge threat to the Misty Mansion and the 3 Holy Lands. But this lunatic wanted to be the sole ruler. That meant that the Tian Fa Forest was also one of the targets that he wanted to conquer. This is very troublesome. June Moxie stood there in silence. He couldn't make up his mind. Because if this lunatic really wanted to conquer the Tian Fa Forest, the threat level would definitely be much scarier than the 3 Holy Lands. This fellow was not only a lunatic, but also a proud lunatic. At the same time, he was also an unreasonable lunatic. If this lunatic really did not appreciate his kindness, and even turned on him, he would definitely not be this lunatic's opponent right now. Just as June Moxie was in a dilemma, Long Crane's words suddenly rang in his mind. When the illusory phoenix appears, the seal is broken. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Anyway, whether I am here or not, the seal is broken. I might as well take this opportunity to be a good person and do him a favor. It would be best if it worked. Even if it didn't, with my yin-yang escape technique, I would not be in danger. At most, I would just lure him away. Thinking of this, Jun Dashao, who had finally found a reasonable reason, finally sped up his movements. Instead, he felt a little anxious in his heart. I must be fast, I must rush over before that lunatic breaks through. Otherwise, if that lunatic breaks through the seal before I arrive, wouldn't I have made a wasted trip? Even with the support of the yin-yang escape technique, with the help of the primordial purple chi, Jun Moxie still had to expend a lot of effort before he finally drilled a small hole in this damned place. Then, he flew in with a whooshing sound. IF*CK. Jun Moxie, who had just entered, suddenly could not help but curse in a low voice. Why is it so cold? It's too cold. Even my soul is about to be frozen. As expected, this seemed to be a narrow passageway. It was dark, and nobody knew where it led to. The temperature inside was several times colder than the top of the snowy mountain. The whistling cold wind was like a sharp knife, blowing out with a gloomy and terrifying atmosphere. Knife? Just as Jun Moxie thought of this, he was shocked to find that the cold wind had suddenly increased. Moreover, the cold glint flashing in the cold wind was actually a sharp saber. They were narrow and small, but they were indestructible. As the sound of the wind gradually became louder, the knives became more and more concentrated, and more urgent. In the end, whether it was the sound of the wind or the sound of the knives breaking through the air, it already had a kind of earth-shattering movement similar to the roar of thunder. Jun Moxie could not help but be shocked. This damned weather! To think that the 9 serenities and 14 masters could actually hold back in here for so many years. Suddenly, F*CK. What the hell is going on? Why did the damn 9 serenities cold wind and 9 serenities cold knife suddenly become so much bigger? Who the hell did this? Is there another little guy coming over from there? But this young master is not dead yet. How could anyone come over? Following a gloomy roar, Jun Moxie clearly saw a ghost-like figure flying over from the other side. The sharp knives clanged against his body, and actually caused the sound of metal clashing, and sparks flew in all directions. As if he did not feel anything, he quickly flew over, and disappeared in front of Jun Moxie in the blink of an eye. He rushed towards the direction where the 9 serenities cold wind was blowing from, as fast as lightning. Jun Moxie wiped off his cold sweat. So strong. Even a saint-level expert would not dare to not dodge or block such a concentrated attack. But this fellow actually dashed forward as if nothing had happened. A sound came from the ground, and Jun Moxie looked over and took another breath of cold air. The 9 serenities cold knife that had fallen on the ground were swept up by the wind. He grabbed one of the knives in his hand, and was shocked to find that the knife's edge had been bent. This was a super-strong metal that did not belong to this world. Jun Moxie estimated that the sharpness and hardness of the 9 serenities cold knife was almost comparable to the strength of an ordinary knife that he had tempered with the power of gold. If it was in the Xian continent, any 9 serenities cold knife could be regarded as an indisputable divine weapon. What was even rarer was that it could be so light as if it was weightless. Such a sharp divine weapon, when pierced into that person's body, it was the divine weapon's edge that was bent. This person's body was too hard. This person must be the legendary 9 serenities and 14 masters. Come to think of it, there seemed to be no one else here other than this lunatic. However, this knife, although it could not hurt the 9 serenities and 14 masters, could it not hurt others? This is a real treasure. Moreover, I can use the power of gold to further temper it, and its power will definitely increase to another level. This knife's texture is special, and its weight is so light. As long as I put some effort into tempering it, there will definitely be gratifying result. At the very least, it will be better than the previous knives and swords. Especially with so many materials here, it's a good thing like a meat pie falling from the sky. June Emosia was overjoyed at the sight of the 9 Netherfrost sabers. Both his hands moved with the wind, collecting the 9 Netherfrost sabers along the way, some on the ground, some in the air, and some that were stuck to the walls. The further he went with the wind, the more these things he found. Every knife was only as thick as a chopstick, and they were thin and flashing with a cold light. When he held them in his hands, a bone-chilling feeling rose up. Tomorrow is the little new year. Today I went out for a shopping spree and bought a few gifts for each of my parents. I'm going to send them home early tomorrow morning. Hee, there's food, necessities, and clothes. So many years of living in poverty, and I can't lift my head up. This year, I'll let my parents have a good time. I remember 2 years ago, my mom said, "Sai, if you can earn $2,000 every month, your dad and I will be relieved." During the spring festival of 2009, my mom accompanied me in the hospital and said, "I don't want to earn much money, as long as we can live together healthily every year from now on, I don't want anything else. If we're poor, then let's be poor." The old people's wishes were so simple, and they were within reach. But at that difficult time it was an extravagant wish. I borrowed money from all my relatives and friends, but I still couldn't borrow $1,000 for medical expenses. My parents have been blaming themselves until now. They said that the pain in my legs every winter was caused by their lack of ability and money, and delayed treatment. When something happened to my son, I don't know how many grievances and supercilious looks my parents suffered, how many hearts were hurt, and how many tears they shed. Now, with the support of my brothers and sisters, I can finally support myself, and I can be considered to have a little ability. So, every day from now on, I will let my parents live comfortably. He was very happy. Let them feel that they didn't raise this son in vain. This can be considered as my vow. I'll say it here, with millions of brothers and sisters as my witness. The day before yesterday, I worked overtime until 4 o'clock. When I encountered a small bottleneck, I went to chat in the group. I suddenly felt very touched. I suddenly realized that my brothers and sisters are so cute. You can be said to be my benefactors. Under the situation where piracy is rampant, I can read books without spending money, but my brothers and sisters have sacrificed so much for me. It can be said that without these thousands of subscribed brothers and sisters, there would be no Feng Ling, and no evil prince. I wouldn't have achieved what I have today. Or rather, without you, I might not even be able to filial piety to my parents. Please allow me to say to my 7,000 subscribed brothers and sisters before the arrival of the little new year, thank you. The hardships of life let me know how hard it is to earn money. He also understood that it was even more difficult to resist piracy and insist on paying for it. So, my thanks are sincere. Thank you, my brothers and sisters. I wish you a happy life. The little new year is coming. I wish you all happiness in advance. If there's no explosion, I won't write a single blessing chapter. In short, thank you very much. I'm not asking for votes, I'm only saying this to thank you. I have nothing to repay you with, I can only stick to my own path and write stories for you for a few more years, so that my brothers and sisters can smile and relax after their busy work. Above. Chapter 798. Mei Shui-yen was cultivating in the Hongjun Pagoda when she suddenly heard a dang-dang-dang sound. When she opened her eyes, she could only see many long and strange knives falling from the sky. It was like hailstones, and after a short while, there was a huge pile of knives, and more were still falling. Carefully moving closer to take a look, Mei Shui-yen was stunned, and a thought popped up in her mind. Could this be the legendary 9 Netherfrost blade? If it really is the legendary 9 Nether Frost Blade? Where is Emocia now? The 9 Nether Frost Blade was the signature weapon of the 9 Nether Young Masters. It was said that every 9 Nether Young Master who appeared in the Xian continent had an inexhaustible supply of 9 Nether Frost Blades. In the Xian continent, this kind of godly weapon could be said to be the ultimate godly weapon. Furthermore, they would never allow the 9 Nether Frost Blade to be lost. Even if it was broken, they would still carefully retrieve it. Although Mei Xuan had never seen it in person, she had heard of it a long time ago. Now that she saw this strange weapon that was as cold as the eyes of a demon, she naturally recognized it with a single glance. Could it be that Emocia has gone to the forbidden land of Tianfa? Mei Xuan could not help but worry. Jun Moxie collected as he walked, and not long after, he felt as if he had collected thousands of these strange knives. And there were still so many of them in front of him, and there were still people coming from behind. The further he walked, the wider the area became. On the walls of the cave, there were also faint traces of mottled marks. Presumably, this was where the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters had been venting their frustrations all these years. From the inside, one could tell that the quality of the walls of the cave was at the level of indestructible. Jun Moxie even tried to use the blood of Yellow Flame to stab it, but even after using all his strength, he could only leave a shallow mark. What kind of material is this, ah? Why is it so hard? No wonder this fellow can't get out. Jun Moxie finally understood. There was a faint, strange light in front of him. Jun Moxie took a step forward, only to find that this place was already a very strange cave. On the top of the cave, there was a layer of colorful things, emitting endless majesty. It seemed indestructible, and was filled with a mysterious power. Jun Emocia found it vaguely familiar. After carefully observing it for a while, he finally couldn't help but laugh. This is simply a formation. And it was a variant of the 9 Nether First Young Master's miraculous barrier. Although the effect was far from being comparable to the 9 Nether First Young Master's personal arrangement, the power was still rather impressive. Who would have thought that the Misty and Misty Mansion would use the 9 Nether First Young Master's method to deal with the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters? Isn't this really hilarious? Could this be counted as the 9 Nether Young Masters lifting a rock only to smash their own feet? The cave was filled with 9 Nether Frost Blades, arranged in piles and piles. With a rough look, there should be at least hundreds of thousands of them. They should have been accumulated over the years. From the looks of it, this 9 Serenities and 14 Masters didn't seem to care much about these things. Jun Moxie's eyes turned, and with a thought, he had already silently kept almost half of them. He thought to himself, since the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters can't use so many, I might as well let them benefit me. I have great use for them, but Jun Moxie still kept an eye out and tried to take some from every pile. As for those hidden in the dark corners, he took a little more just as he kept them. Jun Moxie felt the 9 Nether Frost wind suddenly become stronger. Then, a black figure flew out with a swoosh, cursing. What a strange thing. There's no situation at all. Why is it so abnormal? This young master has made a wasted trip. But this person who called himself young master didn't seem to have anything to do with young master. This person's long hair was messy and draped over his head. His face was so dark that it was impossible to see what he looked like. However, his eyes were extremely bright. His whole body was tattered, and he was in such a miserable state that even the most miserable beggar in the world would feel comforted when he saw him. So there's someone even more miserable than me. When he walked into the cave, he raised his sinister eyes and looked at the 5-colored light above his head. He said fiercely, I want to see how long this broken thing can stop me. As he spoke, he was about to fly up. This guy actually didn't notice Jun Moxie's presence at all. This made Jun Moxie feel much more confident. It seemed that his yin-yang escape was really heaven-defying. However, June Moxie didn't dare to let him continue to attack crazily. Not to mention anything else, he was standing so close to him. It was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't faint from the shock. Just the shock alone was enough to deafen him. That roar alone might even deafen him. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters was just about to jump up when he suddenly heard a gloomy voice beside him. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters? Why are you still attacking? You've been attacking for hundreds of years, aren't you tired? Who's there? Come out. Come out for this young master. The 9 Nether 14th young master's hair stood on end. He even felt that his heart had suddenly stopped beating. His eyes flashed with a cold light, as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. It had been more than 300 years, a total of 375 years. He had stayed here alone. Not to mention humans, he hadn't even seen an ant or an earthworm. Loneliness had become a habit, and loneliness had become a pastime. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters had long given up hope. He knew that no matter what, there wouldn't be a second person here. But now, there was someone else's voice beside him. Although the voice wasn't loud, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, it was like thunder exploding in his ears on a sunny day. With a swoosh, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' body turned into a mass of shadows, from near to far and from far to near. In an instant, the entire cave was filled with the shadows of 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. All of the shadows seemed to have materialized. It was as if thousands of 9 Serenities and 14 Masters had lined up in this cave. June Moxie's entire body was drenched in cold sweat. This lightness kung fu was like a child eating candy, chewing it. Amazing, of all the masters that June Moxie had seen, none of them could match the speed of 9 Serenities and 14 Masters in front of him. Even he and Mei Shiyan couldn't reach this level. This amazing speed, in June Moxie's eyes, seemed to be close to the speed of light. It was too fast. Come out. Who dares to play tricks on this young master? 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' eyes flickered, paying attention to every corner. He looked around carefully, gritting his teeth and shouting, "If you don't come out, I won't be so polite if I drag you out. You can't even find me, and you still want to drag me out? You're talking big. Who are you trying to fool?" June Moxie cursed in his heart. He pinched his nose and said, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, you're indeed an almighty who can lie without blushing. I admire you. I'd like to see how you're going to drag me out. Do you even believe what you're saying? Freeze. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters was so agitated by this sentence that his messy hair danced in the air. Suddenly, he shook his arms, and a few feet of black light shot out from his eyes. His entire body exuded a shocking aura, and he let out a low roar. After he said this, June Moxie suddenly felt that the entire space in the cave seemed to have become solid with that roar. The entire space had turned into a huge crystal ball. Space freezing. The 9 Nether First young master actually had such an earth-shattering skill. This was not something that Mei Shiyan's Heaven and Earth Cage could compare to. The Heaven and Earth Cage only used the power of Heaven and Earth to seal a small area of space. But this move of 9 Serenities and 14 Masters directly sealed the power of Heaven and Earth, turning this space into a dead object. But although this power was strange and overbearing, it still could not affect June Dashao, who was in the state of yin-yang escape. Although June Moxie felt that something was amiss, he could clearly feel the dead silence in the surrounding space. But as long as he did not move, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters would definitely not be able to discover him. Even so, but June Moxie was still sealed in a certain space. This was the first time June Moxie had seen someone who could restrict his yin-yang escape. Although this person did not realize it, still not coming out? If you don't come out, this young master's next move will break it. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters said sinisterly, To be able to become invisible in front of this young master, what a great skill! But, at your level, you should know what breaking the void is, right? He paused, as if giving the person in the dark time to consider. After a pause, he continued, since this young master can seal space and turn it into a dead object, then breaking space is not a difficult thing for me. Are you really not willing to come out? Then don't regret it. Once this space is broken, it will immediately turn into fragments. If you don't come out, this young master will immediately break this space and completely annihilate you. The person in the dark still did not say a word. 9 serenities and 14 masters waited patiently, the corners of his mouth curling into a smile that said everything was under control. He concluded that the person in the dark would definitely accept his threat, because since ancient times, no one had ever survived the breaking of space. The person in the dark might be very powerful, but as long as he made a sound, he was still a human. As long as he was a human, he could not escape this move. However, even he would not easily use this move. Breaking the void consumed a lot of energy. Seeing that he would be able to break the seal after a few more attacks, he did not want to waste his energy at this time. Once he used that move regardless of the consequences, the day of his escape would be greatly delayed. After a long time, 9 serenities and 14 masters did not move, and the person in the dark did not move either. After a long while, the 9 nether 14th young master also felt strange. Could it be that that person was still able to leave under such circumstances? That's impossible. So, he asked tentatively, are you still there? Chapter 799. The voice was still gloomy and illusory, and it circled around the entire stone room. It was impossible to tell where it came from. The voice did not seem to be loud, but the surprise in it was like a slap to the face of 9 serenities and 14 masters. 9 serenities and 14 masters suddenly felt a burning sensation on his face. He had been waiting for the other party to beg for mercy, but he did not expect to be fooled by the other party. This kind of thing could not be tolerated by anyone. Not to mention the 9 nether 14th young master, who had always had his eyes on the top of his head. If he could not even deal with this person, how could he talk about being the supreme ruler of the world? 9 serenities and 14 masters was completely enraged. Break! This time, the 9 nether 14th young master roared furiously. With that roar, the 9 nether 14th young master's body suddenly emitted a ball of black light that was almost solid. A black light that was even darker than the night sky. His head of messy hair also stood on end, fluttering in the air. It was like the water plants swaying with the waves at the bottom of the sea, or a large group of ferocious snakes on the ground that had their necks erect and were about to devour someone. His eyes seemed to have lost all their original color, leaving only a deep and unfathomable darkness like a black hole in the universe. At the same time, the black gas instantly filled the air. 9 serenities and 14 masters shook his arms and pressed his hands down. An unprecedentedly violent hurricane instantly rose from the bottom of his hands. He was clearly pouncing down with his palms facing down, but the hurricane actually swept up from the bottom up. Crack, crack, crack. June Moxie could clearly hear the strange sound of space shattering. It was like a delicate piece of porcelain that was gently knocked by someone. First, there were fine cracks, then the fine cracks gradually spread to the whole porcelain, and it broke little by little. Finally, it completely collapsed. June Moxie could see every single detail of the process, and every single detail of the process clearly. He didn't see it with his eyes, but he really felt that he saw it. It was a strange feeling that made one's hair stand on end. The entire space had truly shattered. In the blink of an eye, the entire cave had become a black hole that could devour everything, completely isolated from the world. It was as if this shattered space didn't exist in this world at all. Instead, it was a space from another world that was forcefully moved here. Everything seemed so out of place. However, June Moxie, who was in the yin-yang escape state, was still safe and sound. Shattering the void. It could indeed destroy everything and turn everything into nothingness, and the only thing that couldn't be destroyed seemed to be nothingness itself. June Moxie heaved a sigh of relief, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel shocked. Is this the legendary void-breaking realm? If even space could be destroyed, then what else couldn't be destroyed? 9 Serenities and 14 Masters was indeed a legendary figure that made the 3 Holy Lands and the Misty Mansion restless. He seemed to be able to use such an earth-shattering power effortlessly. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters heaved a sigh of relief and suddenly felt a little regretful. He felt that his impulsive actions just now were not worth it. Not only had he used up his cultivation and greatly damaged his vitality, but he had also not spoken to anyone for hundreds of years since he was sealed in this place. Now that someone had finally come, he actually angered him with just a few words, and then he directly shattered him. Under the shattering of the space. Even if he was in his soul form, he would definitely not be able to survive. No matter how good this person's concealment technique was, he was still a living person. How could he avoid such a sure-kill technique? 9 Serenities and 14 Masters sighed. He felt that he had used up about 1/3 of his strength with that blow just now, and he couldn't help but feel a wave of regret. He muttered angrily, "What an arrogant bastard! Do you think this void-breaking realm is fun? You've caused me to lose a lot of vitality. For the sake of such an ignorant scoundrel, this young master's escape has been delayed for many more days. He truly deserves to die." As soon as he finished speaking, a voice suddenly asked curiously in the silence, "Is this the so-called void-breaking realm? It's really powerful, and I almost got hurt. Before this, I really didn't think that there would be such an amazing technique in this world. 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, you really live up to your name in the Xian realm." 9 Serenities and 14 Masters only felt the hairs all over his body stand up. This lawless and crazy madman also felt a sense of horror from the bottom of his heart at this moment. Ever since he was born, he had never felt a sense of fear. For the first time, it swept through his heart. That person was still here. He was still alive. How was this possible? But this time, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters did not launch any more attack. He took a deep breath and calmed down. With a flick of his tattered sleeves, the shattered space in the air was swept aside with a clang like a piece of solid glass. Then, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters sat down. In this cave, he was sitting in the void of another world, but his existence was still real. He lowered his head and said in a deep voice, "If you're just joking, then you can leave now. I still have serious matters to attend to, and I'm not interested in playing with you. If you're here for something else, why don't you tell me? I'm all ears." With just one sentence, the 9 Nether 14th young master had taken back the initiative. After a short moment of anger, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters instantly grasped June Moxie's weakness. Because since he was here, no matter how heaven-defying his cultivation was, he was here for a reason. And the reason was none other than himself. So, 9 Serenities and 14 Masters instantly figured this out. It was also because of this that he could say such a thing. No matter what this person's intentions were, he would still negotiate with him. So, all he had to do was wait and see. Although this was not his usual style, there was no way he could not find the specific location of the other party. So even though the 9 Nether 14th young master had regained the initiative, he felt even more depressed in his heart. The famous 9 Serenities and 14 Masters sat in a space that belonged to this world but was in another time and space, waiting quietly. He could choose to sit here and wait, but June Moxie could not. June Moxie had no doubt that once he left the nothingness state of the yin-yang escape, he would immediately be swallowed by this strange space. Or perhaps it would be the beginning of another time travel. But such an outcome was something that June Monsieur could not accept no matter what. After all, this was a broken space. Who knew what kind of *T would happen? This was a risk that could not be taken. So, June Moxie still maintained the state of the nothingness of the yin-yang escape and slowly praised, 9 serenities and 14 masters, your wisdom is indeed superior. Very extraordinary. 9 serenities and 14 masters snorted but did not make a sound. He did not even lift his eyelids. June Moxie looked with interest at this terrifying madman who made the entire Xian continent tremble with fear. This legendary figure, however, found that no matter how he looked, he could not see the face of 9 serenities and 14 masters. Even when 9 serenities and 14 masters raised his head, all he could see was a blur. 9 serenities and 14 masters could actually isolate all the detection from the 6 senses. Or perhaps this was just a special effect of a certain cultivation technique and not deliberate. I am from the Tian Fa forest side. Of course, June Moxie did not want to wait like this, so he simply went straight to the point and said, "Today, I am here to discuss a deal with 14th young master." 9 serenities and 14 masters sat motionlessly, not even a strand of his hair moved. He only said lightly, "Go on. Say it all in one breath." He actually had an indifferent and commanding tone. June Moxie was not angry, and his tone remained calm as he continued, "The seal here, under your continuous attacks, is getting worse and worse. I believe that in a few days, it will be completely broken, and you will definitely be able to escape, and from then on, you will roam the world like a dragon and roar like a tiger deep in the mountains. But there is one thing that you must guard against. The moment you completely break the seal, will also be the day that the magical 9 underworlds passage disappears. You and I both know this very well. Therefore, from the moment you broke the seal, you no longer had a way out. Not a single way out. You can only resist. But I believe that you will also need to pay a huge price to break the seal. Even with 14th young master's magical powers, it will not be an easy task. According to my estimation, after breaking the seal, you will at most retain a third of your strength, or even less. Maybe 10 or 20% is about right. That is to say, the moment you break the seal, you will be free, but it will also be the moment when your strength is at its weakest. I believe that you also know that the 3 Holy Lands and the Misty Mansion will not allow you to come out safely. So, there are already at least a dozen Holy King and Holy Emperor level experts waiting for you outside. At this point, June Moxie suddenly increased his tone and said in a deep voice, "Everyone here is a smart person, and you also know that I am not exaggerating. The moment you break the seal and escape, is the moment when you are most vulnerable to being killed. In the battle that follows, the chances of you being killed are more than 80%. At most, you only have a 20% chance, or you can say that you have a chance to escape by luck. And even if you manage to escape, you will still have to face endless pursuit. And your remaining strength is not enough to fight against all of this. You will definitely die." June Monsieur said the last sentence in a leisurely manner. Then, he stopped talking. Chapter 800. In fact, this was also a major problem that the 9 serenities and 14 masters had been aware of for a long time. Everyone was well aware of this fact. June Monsieur was just being more open about it, that's all. The real important content was what followed after this paragraph. However, June Moxie did not continue. He was keeping them in suspense. He could afford to wait, but the 9 serenities and 14 masters could not. Although the 9 nether 14th young master had a fiery temper, his wisdom was extraordinary. The wisdom he had accumulated over the years was not to be underestimated. He naturally understood that the seal was about to be undone, and there would definitely be many experts outside. If they were given time to set up, or even reinforce the seal, the 9 Nether 14th young master would have to stay in here for another few hundred years. This was something he could not tolerate. If he could tolerate it, he wouldn't have spent so much effort to break the seal. You're right. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters snorted. With a strong sense of unwillingness and depression, he gritted his teeth and said word by word, "You're King right. But do you think I don't know about this? I knew it clearly hundreds of years ago. What's the use of saying this now?" He was unwilling, because the rhythm of the conversation was seized by June Moxie again and again, leading the topic. He had no choice but to answer. For the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, who had been arrogant all his life and always thought that he was the best in the world, it was a naked humiliation. So he was depressed. He felt a sense of shame that was close to being forced to confess. Because of this strong unwillingness and depression, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters, who had always regarded himself as a noble and called himself young master, actually began to swear. This guy in the dark was really infuriating, although what he said was the truth. But it was also bullsh*t. You're right. My words are completely useless to Fart, but to the arrogant 9 Nether 14th young master, they are still of some use. June Emosia said calmly. If he couldn't completely suppress this fellow, this negotiation wouldn't be able to begin. The original intention had to be set from the beginning. Therefore, after June Moxie told the truth, he started to provoke him again. While the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters felt aggrieved and depressed, when had June Moxie and June Dashao ever been ignored like this? I'm talking to you, but you dare to ignore my existence? So what if you're the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters? I'm the one helping you now, not the other way around. How dare you make me take the initiative to speak when you have a favor to ask? See if I don't play you until you're crippled. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' breathing became heavier and more urgent. His chest rose and fell more violently. He had stayed here for hundreds of years. Although he had accumulated more wisdom, he had almost forgotten how to fight against others. Now, the first person he met was a sharp-tongued person who was no less intelligent than him. Moreover, this person was an extreme scoundrel. With June Moxie's words, he could make a dead person jump in his coffin in anger. Moreover, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters had not interacted with anyone for hundreds of years. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters felt that he was going to have a cerebral hemorrhage soon. You mean I'm not as good as a fart? I'm not as good as a fart. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters suddenly roared. He was full of anger that he couldn't vent. With a whoosh, he rushed out of the strange broken space and punched the wall of the cave. A punch that gathered all the strength and anger in his body. The power of this punch was truly earth-shattering and earth-shattering. Boom! After a loud explosion, the entire 9 Underworlds passage began to shake. Then, the loud sound spread along the 9 Underworlds passage, and turned into intense reverberations that came back again and again. June Moxie's ears were almost deafened by the earthquake. Fortunately, he immediately escaped into the Hongjun Pagoda's space when he saw that the situation was not good. Otherwise, he might have been concussed by this madman. June Dashao was dissatisfied. Even if you're not as good as a fart, you don't have to shout so loudly, right? Look at how excited you are. Is this worth showing off? What kind of taste does this person have? I'm not as good as a fart. I'm not as good as a fart, a fart, a fart, fart, fart. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters' voice spread out in an overwhelming manner. Outside, the mist of the misty, illusory manor had completely disappeared without a trace. The 15 to 16 white-robed men and the 8 to 9 burly men in ragged clothes all looked at each other in dismay. Everyone thought in their hearts, could it be that this guy has been in here for hundreds of years? Seeing that he's about to come out again, He's so excited that he's gone crazy? He's not as good as a fart? What does this mean? What's going on? If you're really not as good as a fart, then is it worth us being so serious? If you're not as good as a fart, then what are we? The 9 nether young masters are indeed extraordinary. They really can't be measured by common sense. To think that he could shout out such words in such high spirits, he was too domineering. After a long time, the cave finally quieted down again. The 9 serenities and 14 masters had already returned to the broken space. Only the veins on his temples were throbbing. Jun Moxie flashed out of the Hongjun pagoda at the right time. He coughed and said, Actually, I didn't mean it that way. Please believe me, I'm not saying that you're not as good as a fart. Shut up. The 9 serenities and 14 masters' voice was very low, but it was filled with a kind of extreme suppressed mania that was about to explode. If you say another word of nonsense, get lost immediately. I'm not in the mood, and I'm not interested in negotiating with a bastard like you. I'm trying to clarify for you. Why can't you understand what I'm saying? Jun Moxie had just said one sentence when the 9 serenities and 14 masters suddenly raised his head. His eyes shot out a crazy black light. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. All right, let's talk about something serious. Humph. The 9 serenities and 14 masters slowly clenched his fist, then released it, then clenched it again, and released it again. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Clearly, the anger in his heart had reached an extreme. Why is he acting like a ruffian on earth? Jun Moxie felt a wave of disdain in his heart. But he still hurriedly continued. Of course, your crisis is not impossible to resolve. As long as you promise me one thing, I will help you reduce the resistance of the seal by at least a third. That way you can escape more smoothly. Are you interested in this deal? What do you want me to promise? Can you really reduce the power of the seal? The 9 serenities and 14 masters' body trembled, but he still did not raise his head. My request is very simple. After we get out, you must not start a battle in the Tian Fa forest. And before you defeat me, you must not deal with Tian Fa Xian beasts, and you must not invade the Tian Fa forest. Jun Moxie said word by word. You can fight the 3 Holy Lands and the Misty Mansion however you want, but the battlefield cannot be in the Tian Fa forest. You must preserve this piece of pure land for the Tian Fa forest. How about it? If you are willing to make a promise, I will destroy that seal and allow you to escape with your life, while preserving more of your strength. You will be able to roam freely in Xian. The 9 serenities and 14 masters finally raised his head. Before I defeat you? Who are you? Do you think you are very powerful? Jun Moxie sighed helplessly. He really is a lunatic. At this moment, the first thing he considered was not to get out of this place as soon as possible, but to fight with me. What kind of person is this? I may not be very powerful, but at least in this 9 nether passage that you are most familiar with, you can't do anything to me. Even if you use all your treasures, you won't be able to find any trace of me. Isn't my weight enough? In fact, do you really have the confidence to fight me in addition to the experts from the Misty Mansion and the 3 Holy Lands? Jun Moxie said lightly. The 9 serenities and 14 masters was silent for a while, but to Jun Moxie's surprise, he acquiesced to this fact. Leave your name, I want to know your name first. Although he was arrogant, he respected those who were strong enough to threaten him. The mysterious concealment technique that Jun Moxie had displayed earlier was something that the 9 serenities and 14 masters admitted that they could never do. So, although Jun Moxie's words were a little harsh to him, it was an indisputable fact. This concealer was indeed an unfathomable opponent. As long as it was a fact, the 9 nether young masters had never denied it. Although he was very uncomfortable in his heart, the truth was the truth. I don't have a name. Even if I did in the past, I don't remember it now. All these years, the people from the 3 Holy Lands have been fighting with me, but they couldn't do anything to me. Because I often refer to myself with the word master, the people from the 3 Holy Lands have always called me. June Moxie paused for a while, and a strange smile appeared on his face. But his voice was still calm and steady. 9 Firmament First Old Master. 9 Firmament First Old Master? The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters mumbled. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this name was not pleasing to his ears. Could it be that, other than the 9 Nether lineage, there were other places with such a strange name? 9 Nether? 9 firmaments? 1 earth and 1 sky diametrically opposed. Was this a coincidence? Or was it deliberately targeted? Earth to sky is one thing, but my side has already extended to the 14th. You're actually number 1. I'm the 14th young master, and you're the first old master? Isn't that obviously taking advantage of me? F***CK. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters roared angrily. Which bastard came up with such a filthy name? I can't help it. I only found out later that the reason why the 3 Holy Lands gave me such a nickname was to prepare for the day you came out. Then, just based on our names, we would definitely fight to the death. It's not targeted at you. All the 9 Nether young masters, as long as they hear my name, will definitely come into conflict with me. June Moxie spoke without thinking and said worriedly, and this sinister intention of the 3 Holy Lands is also one of the reasons why I'm here today. I hope you can understand this point. There's one more thing that needs to be made clear. I have no intention of becoming enemies with you. I don't want to let those hypocrites take advantage of me. It's not that I don't have the guts to become enemies with you, or that I'm incapable of becoming enemies with you. You must understand this point. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.